Okay. A very good afternoon to all of you. People who I hope you're watching offline are able to also see this. People who are watching this online, just drop a comment, your name. I'll be first in 1 or 2 minutes just giving you an overview. So we started with a new PSIR 300 batch. Previously, we had covered for the Mains 2026 students. Okay, some of them would have joined in June and July. Right now, from the 21st of August, we started. So we have had one orientation. We have had one current affairs class. Okay, which was related to the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement. And today we are starting with the static portion. And in fact, the first topic we are starting with is political theory, right? Now, anybody who's watching this, in case again you are not sure, not aware, just to let you know, this entire batch is now happening both offline as well as the live mode. Right, you can directly join from today in case you want, from the 25th August. However, there is also one more announcement that another batch, in case somebody wants to join after Raksha Bandhan, another batch will start 8th September, right? This will start from Rawls Theory of Justice, okay? And then we'll continue forward, paper 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, that will be the sequence. Main idea is to cover the entire optional with your short notes. Today only, we will see how are we going to make short notes of political theory, okay? बहुत ही concise manner में, which covers the PYQs as well, fine? So this will take care of all these portions. So whatever batch you are interested in, if you want to start from 8th September, you can do that. Or if you want to join the current batch, 25th, today's 25th, you can do that, fine? That is there. Now, we will be starting with the very first topic in the syllabus. Now, the handout of this is there in your Telegram channels. You can, people who are watching this online can later on, whenever you want, take the printout, keep the PDF handy with you. Okay? For the people offline, in maybe 1 minute or so, you will be getting the printout of the PDF, okay, of political theory. Now, just for your sake, I will just show how this looks like. In every PDF or every handout, what you will be getting is all the PYQs in reverse chronology. So, सबसे पहले होगा 2025, and then moving on till, let's say, the last 10-11 years. Every handout directly, whenever you want to judge how good is your preparation, directly see the PYQs. अगर हमसे PYQ हो रहे हैं, our job is done, right? Now, a small box for introduction and quotes. We will be filling it live in the class. Some quotes that will stand out. For example, if you look at the last question, it's a quote by Plummonarts. And Plummonarts says, political theory is not an escape mechanism, but it is an arduous calling. In today's class, maybe in 1 hour or so, you will understand what is the meaning of this quote, right? So that is there. Now, there are headings, of course, there are some blank sections. Blank sections, we will be filling it in the class, okay? What is political theory, what are the approaches? Now, there are also boxes there, so as that it helps you in your revision. Many times, directly a question can come, normative approach, this approach. This will give you some clarity. What parameters should be there? How should we go about it? Fine. Traditional approaches, very much repeated question that is there. I will start with that section as well. Now, David Easton, what is decline, so on and so forth. So we will be going through it one by one. Now, before I begin, we will spend 2-3 minutes on the most important thing for every topic. What is that? Is the PYQs. First, we will see the PYQs, and after that, we will see the trends and the classification. Right now what you have is only the PYQs that have been asked. But I will go into one layer more analysis and we will see what types of PYQs have been asked. Fine. Now the very first question, examine, explain philosophical approach to study of political theory. Fair point, philosophical approach is there. Comparative analysis of behavioral institutional approach to political theory. ये दोनों क्वेश्चन किस चीज से आ रहे हैं? Approaches. Syllabus, what is the syllabus? Political theory, meaning and approaches. Third question again approach. First three questions on approach. Fourth question abhi aaya meaning. And this is one of the most classical questions that they have asked you till now. Elucidate the meanings inherent in the term political with appropriate illustrations. And again I will tell you, this is a 20 marker. They have asked you this question in 20 marks. You have to expand what is the meaning of the term political. 20 number mein likhna hai ye. This is not an easy question. Okay. We will see how to do this. Now, decline of political theory. Okay. Thread of relevance, post-behavioralism. Importance of behavioral again approach. Normative approach. Resurgence, decline, right? Post-behavioral. How many times do I see post-behavioralism? 2 times. Decline and resurgence I see. And last thing is a quote-based question. This is the entire breadth of the PYQ that has been asked. Okay? So, the very first thing what I have understood, the syllabus says to me, what is this? Meaning and approaches, right? Ye hai syllabus. If I have gone, the moment I have gone to the PYQ, and if I look at the PYQ themes, the most dominant section here happens to be the approaches. अब approaches कैसी भी हो सकती हैं. It can be normative, it can be of course philosophical, empirical. This question has been asked again and again. First type of question. Second type of question they have asked you is decline and resurgence of political theory. This is something that we have seen. अब देखो decline और resurgence के अंदर ही छुपा हुआ है post-behavioralism. Today only we'll see this. What is traditional approach? What is behavioral approach? What is post-behavioral approach? Right? This is hidden here only. And one more type of question that we see is the meaning, because see meaning is also there in the syllabus. अब meaning में सवाल क्या पूछा गया हमसे? In fact, there are two types of questions that were asked. First question was, what is the meaning of the term political? Political होता क्या है? What is political? Directly they've asked you. Second question that they've asked you is a quote based question. Up now they can anytime change. They can bring a tougher quote, easier quote, moderate quote. But the quote will be built upon the meaning of the term political or political theory. Okay? This is something, see every time whenever you start a unit, you people have done your foundations, basic aspects. पर शुरू हम हमेशा यहीं से करेंगे. We need to know what is my syllabus and more than the syllabus, what is the nature of questions that is getting asked. This is going to be a very important feature. Yes? So nature of questions will be always an important factor. Does this make sense? Okay. Now, if I'm clear about the themes, and this will also help you plan your revisions of this topic. This topic is actually a very easy topic. If I know what is political theory, what are the approaches, what was the decline, what was the resurgence, the entire topic is done. This topic is nothing more than this. And this is all we have to do. So when I'm preparing for this topic, I should be very clear and very precise. I should know what is the term political. Does this make sense? Okay. Now, one by one we'll be opening. So basically, if you can understand the major one single mind map. Acha, one more thing before I begin. I think some of you people watching online also, they would want how to be taking notes, etc., which we are saying. Okay. So just note making, but I'll tell you. See, some of you who are making online notes, perhaps iPad, etc., for you it's very easy. You take the handout, you can all on the spot add a page, you can make modifications. For you it's very easy. See? So for you, not much to add. If somebody, those who are watching this offline live directly, if possible, directly make notes on A4 sheets. Okay. And then transfer it. You already have a revision handout. In the previous batch, my experience was in the revision handout, the space was limited, very limited. Last year, in the last batch, the handout had 4 pages. What I have done now, I have made it to 6 pages. I have given you more space to consolidate. Okay? That means the entire political theory can be consolidated in barely 6 pages. 6 means, of course, these 3 back and forth combined is 6, which is more than sufficient. But if you want to absorb everything in the class, you come with an open mind, take proper notes. उसी notes को summarize करके you can put it, bring it to your revision sheets. This year, the people who are writing mains, they have done this exercise. For them, it is the second type of revision. One, you're making active notes in the class. Same cheese ko up, you will shorten it down even further, and then you will carry these revision sheets with you, the one I showed you. ठीक? Now you, in 1 or 2 classes, you will yourself understand what suits you better. Right? Some of you are making directly typing notes. कोई iPad पे देख रहा है. Everybody has a different way of answer writing. Main cheese क्या है? Whatever important things are there, we should not be missing them in the class. That is the point that we should be aware of. Is that clear? Fine? Okay. So, starting with, broadly speaking, what I will be covering here, we have seen the PYQ themes. We will be directly answering this question for ourselves. What is political? What is political theory? This addresses the meaning aspect. Then we go into approaches. And approaches के लिए very easily proper tables are made so that we know how to address this part. Traditional approach क्या है? Other approaches. So we will have a clear idea on the bifurcation. So one is we need to know the approaches inside out. Then we do decline. Decline, whenever I say, see, even when UPSC has asked you a question, decline of political theory, they have not specified which decline. This decline actually happened in how many phases? 2 phases decline. So initially, there was a decline of traditional approaches, and then there was a decline of behavioral approach. So 2 declines happened actually. Traditional approach का decline हुआ, behavioral. This again we'll be understanding this in a proper manner. And if the question does not specify me anything, even if it happens to be a 10 marker, I will be writing about decline in both phases. And you can say, sir, this may be a challenge. Yes, it could be. Today, one of the answers we will write live in the class will also be one of these questions. So, बहुत attentively सुनेंगे. We will be writing after maybe 1.5 to 2 hours. लिखेंगे. And this will also break your inertia. Because please, those who have started the batch, in the first test, you only have 2 topics. बहुत छोटे छोटे टेस्ट हैं आपके. This will give you a lot of confidence. The first test only has political theory, and the second topic is theories of state. इसको पढ़ो, classes करोगे, revise करोगे, directly come and write the test. Right? And this will again the next test is 2 or 3 small topics. Class करी, revise किया, you give the test. Fine. So one is this decline of political theory, right? And when we say decline, just another thing I have to say as a separate dimension will be the resurgence of political theory. This is the broad contour we should be referring towards. And if this is very clear in my mind, this then becomes one of the easiest and high scoring unit in the paper. Many times we overemphasize IPT, WPT. They are important, no doubt. But in mains, you will almost be getting 30 marks from this. Maybe 120 marker, 110 marker, 115 or 110 marker. So 25 marks यहाँ से भी तो आ रहे हैं हमारे. A short unit है. So we can cover it in proper time. Yes or no? So that is the whole idea. So when I'm saying political theory, basic PYQ themes we have just had a look at. I need to know what is political. I need to know what is political theory, approaches, decline, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, let's break this down one by one. Dekho, just for your reference, political and political theory will not have much of difference. Why? What is theory? Very good, right? Theory will be explaining a phenomena. So basic thing is, if I'm able to understand what is political, is my job done? Will I make sense? Yes or no? The main cheese for us to understand is what exactly is political, right? So to start this, I have to start with the question, what is political? So I'll take a couple of responses from your side. What is political? The art of statecraft, okay. Intellectual tradition, okay. What is political? Soch ke batao. Anything. People online, what comes to your mind when you see the term what is political? Chalo, acha, this is a good one, right? The objective to find good life, okay. Because if you look at Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they say a good life and a good political life are nothing but the same thing. This can also be there. Or socho, what is political? ठीक है, दोनों चीजें अच्छी हैं. Distribution of resources and the study of power. Good. Anything else? Right. And who has said this? Huh? Correct. David Easton, authoritative allocation of values. Right. Now, one by one, if I just think, I will first think through. Uske baad, I will also be making you write down very precise points. So when I'm looking at political, I can talk about political is about resource allocation. Okay? And when I say resource allocation, later on I know this is also linked to a term that you are aware of. Yes or no? Distributive justice. Political is concerned about questions of good life. A question comes in our mind. What is good life? कैसे पता चलता है? We can examine this through political. The question of this also, who holds what, when, and how. I will also tell you this is actually a precise statement by a scholar. Okay. So political is also about power. Power hota kya hai? Who holds what? Who holds when? And who holds how they hold it. Right? Similarly, political, like we discussed, रिसोर्स एलोकेशन हो गया, क्वेश्चन ऑफ गुड लाइफ, पॉलिटिकल कैन बी authoritative allocation of values. Right now, I'm not just adding a thinker for the sake of it. Slowly and steadily, we'll build on it very organically. It can be authoritative allocation of values. ये हमें समझ में आ रहा है? Now, how many of you can link at least one thinker here? Which thinker can you think of? This is David Easton. In power, can you think of any thinker? Stephen Lucas और कोई? Gramsci, ठीक है, I can say. Maybe Max Weber. Abhi, we are just brainstorming. I'll tell you who has precisely said it. When I say the question of good life, who comes to your mind? Even Aristotle can come. Even Socrates, Plato can come. This is there. Right? Resource allocation, again. Distributive justice. It can be anything. It can be Plato, but it also can be Rawls. Okay? Don't you think there is something missing here? Aren't all these thinkers male thinkers? We haven't had a thought about female thinkers. No single female thinker. So when you look, yes. So when you look at it, one dimension we have to talk about. Yes or no? The question that UPSC asked you, what are the inherent meanings in the term political? Political till now is about who holds power, when they hold it and how. But we have not talked about power with different sections of society. Don't you think the question of political should also be there for not just feminists, but also subaltern section? Who are subaltern? The marginalized sections. अब देखो, we are just simply thinking who should be there in political. तो political का जो question है, it should actually concern everybody, which means it should be inclusive. It should be value based, right? Now, again, so if you understand the term political, that is why it's going to be broader, which means we have to talk about the feminist concerns here, right? And we can go one step beyond. और क्या सोच सकते हैं? That you have to talk about subaltern sections, right? And here, this is why the values like equality, justice, democracy, rights, even that is political. So when I look at political, one is, if you think of it this manner, जैसे David Easton says values, now this will make more sense to you. Which values? Every value that we see in paper 1A. Now let's revise paper 1A. First topic is political theory. Second, theories of state. Third, justice. अब उसके बाद क्या? Equality, rights, democracy, power, ideologies, IPT, WPT. So when you are stuck, this I will tell you is the broadest paper or topic. So when I'm looking at it, what is the political? आपके दिमाग में होना चाहिए, everything is political, right? Sometimes we say don't become political. For us, everything is political. Anywhere there is a dialogue भी political है, right? In fact, अभी तो हमने लिखा Aristotle, he is saying question of good life, but we also know Aristotle, man is zoon politikon. People have a social life. People have to participate in the public affairs. Till here, how many of you are able to follow? So when you are looking at this, जब हम इसको देख रहे हैं ध्यान से, political for you should be all encompassing. That is the first point I want to make to you. All encompassing. जितना broad सोच सकते हो, उतना अच्छा आंसर लिखोगे. So don't limit your answer perhaps only to Greek thought or only to Western thought. You can include diverse opinions. That is the idea. So till now, अभी आप सिर्फ एक चीज लिखेंगे. यहां लिखा है what is political. In the bracket लिखो all encompassing. What is political में we will be writing it is all encompassing. It's a very broad term. This will open up your mind. Yes, yes, good point. Okay, so a student saying in IPT, political is also about dharma. Will बहुत अच्छा point है. It is about yog shame. You know what is dharma? Dharma is not religion. Dharma is duty. That is why my point is political is all encompassing. अगर मुझे ये पता है तो I will be able to write broad points. All encompassing. So again, don't limit yourself only to the western section. Right? हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? We say yoke shame. What is yoke shame? In the happiness of people lies the happiness of king. So directly the material good should be linked to people's prosperity. Even this is political. Then Ram Rajya becomes political. Ram Raj is what? It is the conception of ideal state. For Plato, political also includes philosopher king, the idea of justice. But for Gandhi or somebody else, it includes something else. So, अगर एक question आता है, discuss the inherent meanings in the term political. If you want to gain 1 marks extra, bring IPT perspective also, because everybody will only be writing the Western perspective. So the only thing I'm telling you is all encompassing, which means, of course, we mentioned Western tradition. Of course, you can mention the Eastern tradition also. The term political has a wide connotation. Till here, how many of you are able to follow? और बाकी तो भी और भी I'll tell you, it talks about state, it talks about justice, so on and so forth. The main heading, the very first heading we are seeing is what is political. So I hope that point makes sense. ठीक है, इतना समझ में आ रहा है? Okay, now before we fill this part of what is political, let's first talk about introduction. In introduction, I'll tell you a couple of quotes, more lines. In quotes, if I don't fill something here, by the end of the class, we will have 3 or 4 very important lines to fill on. Fine? तो सबसे पहली चीज जो आप लिखेंगे इंट्रोडक्शन में, लिखो George Sabine. In the introduction start, George Sabine, put a dash. Political theory began the day. Political theory began the day people started to live together. Political theory began the day when people started to live together. First line of Sabine we have written. Second come in the introduction also, right? देखो Germino, Germino, Germino. The name is Dante Germino. He also wrote a book related to decline and revival of political theory. Just write the name right now. Germino or Dante Germino. ठीक है, आज ही देखेंगे इनकी बुक का नाम रिवाइवल ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी एट द एंड ऑफ दिस क्लास. डांटे जर्मिनो लिखो. पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी is an intellectual tradition. Political theory is an intellectual tradition which looks at, it is an intellectual tradition which looks at man's societal existence. It looks at man's societal existence from a critical perspective. Man's societal existence from a critical perspective. Man's societal existence from a critical perspective. Now let's repeat the two lines that we have written. पहली क्या है? George Sabine. What does Sabine say? It started the day people started to live together, which means political theory is as old as human evolution. First thing. Second, Dante Germino, and I've just planted a seed in your mind. Dante Germino is going to be talking about revival. So he is going to be a traditionalist thinker. What does Germino? And Germino का quote बहुत अच्छा quote है. What is political theory? It is an intellectual tradition. I think somebody mentioned in this class intellectual. आपने बोला था हाँ. It's an intellectual tradition that looks at man's existence from critical perspective. Right? What is the meaning of critical perspective? That political theory सिर्फ हाँ 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 नहीं करेगा. It does not agree to everything that is there in the society. It will criticize. What does that mean? It will not just tell you what is, it will also tell you what ought to be. इसलिए political theory is important. Now, these kind of quotes will also help you answer tougher questions. Lemonard's का जो quote है, if you see it in your handout, it is an arduous calling. This will also tell you the relevance of political theory. These two quotes can be used in relevance of political theory as well. Does this make sense? अब आओ इस पे. Come to what is political. We have only written one keyword till now. What did we write? All encompassing, so that whenever you now think of this heading, think as broad as possible. Right? Now, first line likho. Whenever you get a question on justice, political, you have to tell the examiner there is no single meaning here. Question ने पूछा मुझसे what are the inherent meanings? आप उसको बताओगे मुझे बहुत पता है. There are multiple meanings and the term is contested, which tells you, and you will tell either through the terms or through scholars. Scholar based approach हो सकती है. What did Aristotle say here? What did somebody say? This is a different approach. Here, a keyword is used and then the scholar is used. You can use both in your answer. So, right, the term political is contested. The term political is contested because politics does not have, the term political is contested because politics does not have one fixed location or activity. It does not have one fixed location or activity. It does not have one fixed location or activity. Now, if you're writing directly in the handout, you've written that it is contested. What will you now do? You will break this space in two halves. Because first I will tell you thinker based perspective, and here I will tell you how the term political has evolved. It started with state, but now it has come to social aspect. Personal is political. Right? एक ही तरह से लिखोगे, then you will have less space, although there is a lot of space to use here. So you have just till here, what have you written? The meaning of the term is contested. Fine. Now, you will divide this, and how will you do that? I will do it here. In case somebody has already made this, excellent, हम इसी को repeat करने वाले हैं, but in a slightly different manner. So write the first mini heading. देखो, thinker's conception of political. Thinker's conception of political. Thinker's conception of political. Start with Aristotle. Aristotle, right? Politics concerns with the good life in the polis, P-O-L-I-S. In fact, from the word polis, the word politics ultimately will become. So, the Aristotle, what have we started with? Right, right. So, politics concerns with the good life in the polis. एक और term है with Aristotle that you should be aware of. ये सुना है term? Aristotle will talk about eudaimonia. ये term लिखो bracket में फिर. When we do Aristotle in WPT, I will again repeat these terms. Aristotle के लिए eudaimonia is very important, and you can get eudaimonia in a state. Aristotle will say it is in the teleology of people to be under a state. सुना है term teleology? What is teleology? Final. Anything else? Teleology means it is ultimately man's final destination to be under state. Please write this term somewhere else. Make a separate copy, a list. Today, one new term you are seeing is eudaimonia. एक अलग से हमेशा have a habit of making separate terms somewhere. Eudaimonia. Second term I told you was teleology. ऑप्शनल में हमें कोशिश करनी है, जैसे whenever you are making notes, एक separate A4 sheet handy रखो, बस scribble करते रहो key terms को. Last में you'll have a very good repository. In fact, चलो let me do it today. Terms की मैं sheet बना रहा हूँ. First term I used extra was eudaimonia. Both are good keywords for Aristotle. Teleology. The more precise we are with keywords, the better it is. ठीक है? लिख रहे हो रितेश? You writing? Okay. ठीक है. So we have written Aristotle. Politics concerns with the good life in the polis, and another third keyword आने वाला है. देखो, man is a zoon politikon. Man is a zoon politikon. Yes, good point. Natural destiny. Yes, even that is correct. Man is a zoon politikon. इसका मतलब क्या होता है? Very good. But what does it mean? For example, you will say, sir, right now some of the shops are closed in ORN, but man is a zoon politikon. I have to go. Then what will happen? और सोचो, what is the meaning of zoon politikon? सोच के बताओ. Anybody else who also says man is zoon politikon? Hannah Arendt. Very good. People have to participate in politics. They have to participate in collective decision making, deliberation. All of that is, man is a social animal. Social animal is not that man will go and do a party in horse cars or CP. As soon as we are very social. For Aristotle, what is social in nature? Civic republicanism. ये सब देखेंगे आगे, right? I hope this part is clear. This is Aristotle. Now write the second one, second thinker, which we have already written, but we are now writing in a proper manner. David Easton. Already we have written. Likho David Easton, just one line. Authoritative allocation of values. Authoritative allocation of values for society. Authoritative allocation of values for society. Third one is important for you. Till now, I have not told you the name of the thinker. The name is Harold Laswell. What we write here, by the way, जो भी हम लिख रहे हैं, everything can be used in power. Now, Harold Laswell ये लिखा था अभी हमने, This is actually by Harold Laswell. For Harold Laswell, politics is who gets what, when, and how. And this is exactly what you can write in power. Start wahan se karo. Power is, according to Laswell, who gets what, when, and how. Right? Who gets what, when, and how, put a dash. And write distribution of resources and power. So he talks about politics is the distribution of resources and power. Another person that you will again see in the topic of power. How many of you know this person? Max Weber. And in which topic do you know him? Power, legitimacy. So Max Weber's definition of authority is what? नहीं वो तो second level है, आपने already answer दे रखा है. What is Max Weber's authority? Power plus legitimacy. बिल्कुल सही बात है. So in Max Weber, please write one line. Politics is striving to share. Politics is striving to share or influence power. Politics is striving to share or influence power. Two more thinkers to go, so please use your space accordingly. Hannah Arendt. What would Hannah Arendt say about politics? सोचो अगर याद है तो. I will be revising Hannah Arendt with you. What does Hannah Arendt what will she say about power? Chalo, good. Then that is also there. Power and violence, power and domination. She used to write power and strength, right? So please write. Politics emerges through speech and action. Politics emerges through speech and action in public realm. बिल्कुल सही. वीटा एक्टिवा. Politics right? So the public realm, what are we writing? So politics emerges through action and speech in the public realm. Of course, when you read more about Hannah Arendt, you can expand on more this more. That politics is about people who are acting in concert, right? This is where the power truly lies. ये हो गया. Now, one more dimension and last point we'll say is feminist scholars. Write this name. Carol Henish. Make sure the spelling is correct. And the term personal is political. Right now, we'll only be doing a very short summary of it. This is a proper topic that we do in feminism. Okay. So basic core idea when we say personal is political, what does it mean? Hmm? Okay, or kuch? The normally conventional understanding is that patriarchy only operates in the public sphere, but radical feminists, they will say patriarchy is also present in the private sphere. Do you are you able to understand? Okay, and this is what is this is a very radical idea. In fact, after this idea, when you see Domestic Violence Act, Dowry Act, what does it tell you? Patriarchy is also present in the personal sphere, in your private sphere, and it tries to resolve the public private dichotomy. Earlier, it was felt that it is only in the outside that we have a challenge. Yes or no? So outside, mein what other feminists said, let's give you a right to vote. Let's allow the women to contest in elections, public offices. Did it solve the concern of women? No. Kyun? The patriarchal domination was present in the private sphere, in the personal sphere. So even that also has to be addressed, right? Now, so in Carol Hanish, you've written feminists, personal is political. Look, power operates within family. Power operates within family, comma, sexuality. Power operates within family, sexuality, and and everyday social relations too. Everyday social relations too. Everyday social relations too. Now, we have just seen how the term political can be interpreted. Start kaise hua? Aristotle, good life and zoon politikon. Second one is David Easton, authoritative allocation of values. Third is Laswell, who gets what, when, how. Next, Max Weber. What do you say? Influence and power. Right. Next one is Hannah Arendt. Simple speech, action in the public realm. Next, feminist, personal is political. Right. Now, you can even go beyond this, like I've told you. If this is a 20 marker, of course, you'll be explaining all of them also. And you can also go into the perspective that political also means duty centrism as seen in Immanuel Kant and Indian political thought. Okay, this I will be just coming to it. So we have seen the thinkers. Okay, and second thing we know we have to talk about is how the concept has evolved. So second heading here is evolution of the term political. Evolution of the term political. अब देखो, this will give you a good understanding. Political was initially concerned only with the term state, but state के बाद अब वो बात किसकी हुई? पावर की. पावर के बाद बात किसकी हो रही है? Allocation of values. And after now, we are also talking about social change, social transformation. Think of the feminists, for example. The term has changed. The meaning of the term has changed, right? So this is, you can think of the Western tradition. In the Eastern tradition, in general, for example, think of IPT. In IPT, we also see the term political can also signify ड्यूटी, राइट? अब ड्यूटी सेंट्रिक वर्ड वी ऑलरेडी नो इन धर्म, तो बीट अर्थशास्त्र धर्मशास्त्र दिखेगा. एंड रिमेंबर ड्यूटी कैन ऑल्सो बी सीन इन categorical imperative of Immanuel Kant. So back and forth linkage can be there. So the term political has evolved also. Initially it was all about state, then it was about power. जैसे Laswell, right? What does Laswell say? Or Max Weber? It is ultimately about power. Political is power, but we also say it is about even allocation of values. And in the recent times we can talk about the transformation. अब जो transformation सोचोगे, think of feminists. Right? This is just one example, by the way. Does this make sense? Okay, so keep this in mind. How the term has evolved, the term political. So you will write this, and now you'll write after. How many of you have written this? Click here. Now, please write. Thus, the term political cannot be confined merely to state and formal institutions. It cannot be confined merely to the state and formal institutions. Full stop. Wherever there are questions of power, authority, conflict, wherever there are questions of power, authority, conflict, distribution, and justice, there is a political dimension. There is a political dimension. Yes, we can say that it is also related to realists. If their concern is about power, even that dimension can come. So that is not a wrong way to think about. All right. Okay. Now, how many of you follow till here? In case you don't have it. Okay. पहला क्वेश्चन क्या आंसर किया हमने? What is political? And your notes are in the format that you can easily answer the PYQs as well. Right? Now flip your page. The next question we are answering is, what is the question? Right? Now when I'm talking about what is political theory, I need to know two things: the nature of political theory and the scope of political theory. ये छुपा हुआ है इसमें. I need to know nature and scope, both. Right? When I say what is the nature of political theory, सोच के बताओ, what is the nature? It is descriptive but also prescriptive. दोनों चीज होंगी. Right? And और क्या होगा? Methodology, of course, again same thing. Normative, empirical. Again, what else will be there? When I'm saying what is political theory? The political theory, abhi jo hum discuss karenge, it will borrow a lot from what we've already done. ठीक है. So here we can easily classify. I will come to the nature and scope very shortly, but first write just one line. Because political theory, and this also should be divided. You have space. This will be divided in two parts. The handout. Political theory is systematic reflection. Political theory is a systematic reflection upon political ideas. Political theory is a systematic reflection upon political ideas, comma, institutions, practices and values. Right? So what have we talked about here? What is a very basic understanding and definition of political theory? Okay. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल डेफिनेटली वो हम यूज कर सकते हैं. आई विल अगेन ब्रिंग इन जर्मिनो इन द बॉडी, बट यू कैन स्टार्ट विद जर्मिनो आल्सो, नो इश्यूज. ठीक है. नाउ वी आर आंसरिंग द क्वेश्चन व्हाट इज पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी. पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी पहले हमसे 3 सवाल पूछते हैं, राइट? So you can, you have written the main definition. So देखो next देखो PT is political theory, asks 3 questions. First देखो what is, this is again for our easier understanding. What is, this is the conceptual aspect of political theory. Now what is may any value take off. What is justice? What is power? What are rights? So it will tell you what is. Political theory answers the first question, that is what is. Second, it also explains the reasons. So in that sense, it is explanatory in nature. So first thing it tells you is what is. Plato's theory of justice is different. Plato's conception of maybe some concept is different. So एक चीज ये है. But it also tells why. अब जैसे why, question can be why philosopher king is above law. It will explain why justice for Plato, for example, is architectonic. So it is conceptual, it is explanatory, it will explain. देखो theory का, what is the work of theory? Theory's work is to explain political phenomena, which it is doing. So it tells you the concept, it tells you the explanation behind a concept, and very important thing, till now it seems to be descriptive. Explanation is description, but it is also normative in nature. It is also normative, what ought to be. Now, which means political theory, for example, will explain how a state is in chaos, right? But political theory can also explain how to get away from chaos. So if I look at political theory, I get to understand 3 things. कौन सी 3 चीजें हैं? It tells me a concept, it can be justice. It tells me the state of affairs, it explains, and it goes beyond and it tells me what ought to be. जैसे कि अभी जो क्वेश्चन देख रहे थे हम, what is a good life? And because it is normative in nature, that is why political theory is a arduous task. It is not just time pass. You have to understand it in and out. Yes. So it asks you basic questions. It is conceptual, it is explanatory, and it is normative in nature. Does this make sense? Right? Now, if you are very clear on these three, this will help you understand. Now we will go into the nature and scope of political theory. Sometimes till now this question has not been asked, the nature and scope. But if you read any book, OP Gauba, कोई भी basic book पढ़ोगे, उसमें ये तो headings होती ही होती हैं. Till now they have not asked you if you see the papers, but we will prepare it for our own sake. So if these three questions are clear, next heading, nature of political theory. Nature is यही चीज है nature. What you've written just above is nature, but I will just tell you in a slightly different manner. Now, if you are confused, you can also write political theory can be conceptual, explanatory, and normative. But now I will write in a different manner. Likho, the nature of PT is contested. The nature of political theory is contested. Nature of political theory is contested. Full stop. For Leo Strauss and Germino, for Leo Strauss and Germino, did we see Germino today? And Germino supports traditional theory. Leo Strauss also supports traditional theory. For Germino and Strauss, it is philosophical, comma, for Machiavelli, it is an art. For Machiavelli, it is an art. And for David Easton and Dahal, for David Easton and Dahal, it is time. अब देखो नेचर में सी 3 people 3 different views. It is philosophy, it is art, and it is science. Nature है ये. So if somebody asks you nature, best way to start is the nature is contested. Different scholars have different opinions here. The nature is contested. That is what we will write. Does this make sense? ठीक, पहला. Next लिखो इसी में. लिखो Germino and put a star mark. We've already written the quote of Germino. Second point you write is Germino. How many of you remember the quote of Germino? बताओ, what did we write? Political theory is an intellectual tradition that looks at man's existence from critical perspective. Right? This also tells you nature of political theory. So Germino आ जाएंगे यहाँ पे. This is what I was telling you. I will mention in the body. So next is Germino. And put a star because already we have quoted Germino. इसलिए हम star mark लगा रहे हैं. We've already quoted Germino. ठीक है? Next, right? J.D.B. Miller. J.D.B. Miller. इनकी बुक का नाम लिखो इन द नेचर ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स. हेडिंग क्या है? नेचर ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी. सो राइट J.D.B. Miller in the nature of politics. J.D.B. Miller in the nature of politics. highlights that politics is all about disagreement. Highlights that politics is all about disagreements between man, state, and society. This is also nature of political theory. Politics is all about disagreements between man, society, and state. ठीक है? Next, right? Again, Laswell. How many of you remember Laswell? Who gets what, when, how? So लिखो Laswell, and put a dash. Go PT, political theory, is the study of sharing and shaping of power. Political theory is a study of sharing and shaping of power. Now you have a very enriched arguments with you. What did we start with? What is political theory? We have seen it is conceptual, it is explanatory, it is normative. Then we separately went into the nature of political theory. For some it is philosophy, for some it is art, for some it is science. Then we saw some quotes. Germino. Now repeat the quote of Germino. It is an intellectual tradition that looks at man's existence from a critical perspective. Correct. Then J.D.B. Miller, what does he say? Politics is all about disagreements between man, state, society. Lastwell, what is it? Sharing and shaping power. अब देखो ये जो lines हैं, these lines can also be used in directive power. Right? If you are forgetting what he says here, says that political theory is about who gets what, when, and how. Already we have seen this. Fine. Now, other question इसलिए आ जाए ना, if you get a very broad question on political theory, ये सारी चीजें, this will help you sail through and write a very good answer. And you don't have to write the heading here. This is for our own structuring, we are doing it. So nature we have done. Now we move to scope of political theory. Scope of political theory. Scope of political theory, right? पहली चीज लिखो. अच्छा, by the way, when I say scope of political theory, there will be in books also, Goba, other books. They will sometimes use political theory and political science interchangeably, right? So don't get confused. So somebody will say, see, political science is master science because it encompasses every discipline. Even that is there. That is the scope. Scope, what is the meaning of scope? That in which all domains is it going to be helpful, right? And in fact, I will also use the term political science somewhere, so you can use that interchangeably. In UPSC interview, this is one of the most common questions. Why is political science called a science? Okay? Which will be a homework for today also, which I'll be giving you. Okay? Now, we are writing scope. So पहले लिख लो. First point. देखो, political science is master science with autonomous character. 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 Political science is master sci Political science is master science with autonomous character which covers all aspects of human life. Autonomous character. It's a master science. Political science is a master science with autonomous character which covers all aspects of human life. Next लिखो Edmund Burke. Edmund Burke. Who is Edmund Burke? Any idea? Conservative. Good. ठीक है. He is a conservative scholar. We will see also Edmund Burke in. Also देखो, if you read political ideologies of Haywood, उसमें एक चैप्टर है कंजर्वेटिज्म जो आपके सिलेबस में नहीं है. डोंट वरी. There also you will read about Edmund Burke. Okay. But when I criticize natural rights theory of John Locke, again I talk about Edmund Burke. Fine. So write Edmund Burke and write all disciplines take guidance from political science. All disciplines take guidance from political science. देखो, this framework will be very handy. सवाल क्या है? What is the scope? For some, it is simply the study of political man. Okay, political man means individual person. For some, it is the study of state. The next topic we will start is theories of state. आपने सुना होगा common definition, Garner, right? Political science is nothing but the study of state. This I am telling you under the heading of scope, right? But this can also be used in the term, what is the meaning of the term political? Just now we saw the term political can mean state, it can mean power, it can mean allocation, and it can also be social transformation. तो अब देखो scope क्या है? Some people will agree that it is the study of political man, or it is the study of state, or it is the study of associations and certain institutions. Okay, and somebody will say it is the study of past, present, and future. This covers everything in the scope, and this exactly can be used in what are the meanings inherent in the term political. ये हो सकता है फिर से use. So what is political science, political theory? What is the scope of it? The scope is very broad. Yes or no? Study of political man, study of state, study of associations and institutions, study of past, present, future. Does this make sense? इसको आप ऐसे लिखेंगे. And for each thing I will give you at least one scholar who has said that. Lasky, for example, will talk about how it is the study of political man and the problems faced by people. Garner will say it is the study of state. In fact, आपने सुना होगा Gettel, R.G. Gettel, Garner. They say political science, political theory is nothing but the study of state, right? Study of associations and institutions. Robert Dahal, he will say political theory, political science is the study of associations and institutions. And lastly क्या है? It is the study of past, present and future. What is this all? All of this is nothing but what is political theory. अब इसमें मैं आपको 20 मार्कर भी दूं, you will directly be able to write an answer on this. Otherwise, this is very scattered. If you read this in OB/GOB, it will take you a lot of time. We have just summarized everything in a very short span. उसमें आपको headings याद रहनी चाहिए. Think of the 3 basic questions: conceptual, explanatory, normative. Nature याद रखो. Nature is what? Contested. Philosophical, art or science, right? Scope क्या है? It is master science, right? Edmund Burke saying every discipline borrows from political science and political theory. And lastly, क्या main pillars हैं? Study of political man or the problems of political man, study of state, it can be state or the government, right? Study of associations and institutions, and the study of past, present and future. How many of you follow till here? Study of past, present and future. Study of values भी इतनी समय छुपा हुआ, जो values हैं. If you study the political man, because you want to know how the man should live, what problems he faces, this is nothing but this. The study of political man also includes the problems they have. For problems you will have values, right? In fact, values यहाँ भी आ जाएंगी, past, present and future. Think of a historical approach. Think of future. That means again normative approach will be there. That what is a good life, what is a good state, what is justice, what is rights, democracy. How many of you are following? किसके follow कर रहे हो यहाँ तक? ठीक है? Okay. Now, till now we have seen 2 things. What is political? Second is what is political theory. समझ रहे हैं यहाँ तक? Right. Now, if you look at your handout, so political we have done, all encompassing. Second thing we have done is what is political theory. Now, you see this approaches to political theory. ठीक है? Now, if you look at the approaches, you have a normative approach, / philosophical, empirical, behavioral, right? Now, if you see this heading, etc., you may get confused. You may think empirical approach started with 1920s, but is that correct? बताओ. So, these 4 things I will first quickly explain this to you. उसके बाद I'll go to the table. Meaning everybody now understands. Now we are talking about approaches. सबसे पहले we need to know there are traditional approaches, right? For the first maybe 10 minutes or so, you can hear me out, and then we will be making some sense. Can you give me example of traditional approaches? Then बताओ और कौन सी approaches हैं? Right? Now, whenever we are preparing approaches, you know to know have a basic framework. This is how also the table is made. देखो question, this is very repetitive question. Question can be like the question that came in 2025, explain philosophical approach to the study of political theory. So I'm just taking that as a question. This is how we have to prepare our content. Philosophical approach to the study of political theory. Now, what do I need to know one by one? I should have an introduction, right? Now, what generally I can talk about? I can talk about that political theory has been analyzed through different approaches. With traditional approaches like, and then I can directly transition to the demand of the question. In the body, the most important thing is any approach that is there. पहले आप बताओगे ये है क्या? This approach stands for example, if the question is philosophical approach, what is the idea? It will talk about this approach stands for values, a value laden, value based society. It explains the phenomena through ideas. It talks about what ought to be. It is normative in nature. तो आपने बता दिया what the approach stands for. You can explain the method if that is there, normative, etc. But the most important thing will be this. हम ये भूलते हैं बहुत बार. Many people write the answer on philosophical approach, only write Plato. Not a great answer. At least for every approach, I would want you to remember 3 people. At least I'm saying. पता होने चाहिए मैं. Right? And that is how your notes should be made and structured. So, because examiner will see, acha, you know what it stands for, what method it has used, what thinkers are there. Now, if I'm talking about Plato, who is there in the Greek ancient times, I can also bring in, we can also bring in Hegel. State is the march of God on earth. वो भी हम कर सकते हैं, right? तो बॉडी में आपने इसको एक्सप्लेन किया अच्छे से. Bring in diversity, explain this. Now, you have to have, from this very first class of today, I will make sure that you know the criticism of each theory in and out. Political science, we said, it is a study of all disagreements. किसने बोला है? Political theory is a study of disagreements. J.D.B. Miller, we have just written this. And there is no theory that is beyond criticism. Even Plato has to go through so much of criticism, despite being an idealist. This has to be there. Even if it is normative approach, empirical approach, any approach, you have to write a criticism. And after the criticism, we will come to the conclusion. Conclusion कैसे हो सकता है? कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा? Despite criticism, whatever X जो approach है, helps us. Think of its academic contribution. Or if you know, for example, if philosophical approach has helped any new thinkers, modern thinkers, उनके नाम से जोड़ दो आखिरी में. This approach can even be seen in the modern political theory, in the works of. That is one way to conclude. So the point I'm trying to make is, this is how we will be going through. किस किस को समझ में आ रहा है? थोड़ा सा basic idea. I'll be again expanding on this. My thing is, simple thing is, we have to prepare the approaches in a very systematic manner. ठीक है? Very systematic manner we have to prepare our approaches, so that we are able to cover the dimensions and we are able to have a proper idea in this. ठीक है? Introduction होगा, body में method होना चाहिए, thinkers, basic explanation, have a criticism, have a conclusion, right? Anywhere if you miss, you always leave a scope for half mark deduction, 1 mark deduction. Why do that? ठीक है? And read this section carefully, because we will be writing at least 1 answer on approaches today in the class. ठीक है? Although I can ask you again, what is political theory, but that is relatively easier. ठीक है? So we will also be going through this. Now, what I was telling you in the approaches part, so remember we have I was telling you we had in the initial times we had traditional approaches. All the approaches one by one I'll have a go at, but remember, generally speaking, what are these approaches? देखो दो चीजें देखेंगे. First, we will see common points about these approaches, and here we'll see the criticism of these approaches. These approaches, for example, are more philosophical in nature. They are more institution specific. When it comes to criticism, there are many criticisms of these approaches. क्या क्या criticism है? They are value laden. Then these approaches they are divorced from reality. That is why some people say these are escape mechanisms. These approaches were not able to explain the issues around World War II. Okay, all the chaos, and they were not able to properly explain these things. Other than this, they were not verifiable. Verify कैसे करोगे? They were not systematic. Somebody has said something and you have to believe it. There is no way you can verify that. So it is not verifiable, it is not systematic, of course it is not scientific. Right? There are so many problems that were there with the traditional approach. And because of that, now people will start to make a claim. For example, there will be Alfred Coban, whatever you say, he will make the assertion, political theory is dead. Why? Because of all these problems. These are value laden, बहुत ज़्यादा values हैं इसमें, right? Divorced from reality, not able to explain World War II and the surrounding issues. They are not verifiable, they are not systematic, and they are not scientific. ये सारे issues हैं, right? This will lead to behavioral approach. Who will be a pioneer in the behavioral approach? And even people like Robert Dahl, Main and David Easton. Now, what is their objective? इन्हीं चीजों को, to address the criticisms, to address the issues of traditional political theory, right? That is the objective they have. Now, second thing that you have to know, they want to make the discipline scientific. All these issues they had to remove: scientific, organized, verifiable. In some sense, they wanted to make political science pure science, and which is why you see here, क्या होगी बात? We want facts, facts, and facts. Right? And this behavioral approach, behavioral revolution, is something that we'll be seeing in the 1950s around time, 1950s, starting 60s. So there will be a huge criticism of the existing traditional approach. Why? It is not verifiable. It is unscientific, value laden, parochial. All these challenges will be there. There will be a call for behavioral approach. David Easton. In your handout, you'll also see David Easton will give 8 points related to behavioral approach, behavioral method, regularization, systematization, verification, etc. etc. अब यहां पे क्या होगा? again a criticism will start. So first decline you see here, traditional theories being criticized for many issues. Again, अब यहाँ पे David Easton was the one who criticized them, and David Easton will be the one who will again criticize them, right? And he will say political scientists are now sitting in ivory towers perfecting their techniques. So what have they become? They have becoming, in the quest to become scientific, they have become excessively scientific, and they have ignored the true nature of discipline. तो अब जो criticism आएगा इस approach का, I'm writing the negatives here. It has become too factual. Okay. It ignores the discipline's focus. Again, political science is not pure science. In fact, political science without values, it loses its meaning. So what we had word wars, for example, you have to again reconstruct, you have to have a better view of justice and ideas. So there will be a lot of issues and the criticism of behavioral approach. And which is why David Easton will now say, we need a, this keyword is also important, credo of relevance. And this will lead to the post-behavioral method or the post-behavioral approach. So first you need to know there is a traditional approach, there is a behavioral approach, and there is the post-behavioral approach. Now, in many sense we say, if traditional approach is the thesis, behavioral approach is antithesis, and post-behavioral approach is synthesis, right? So post-behavioral approach, the biggest thing that it will try to do it resolves fact value dichotomy. पहले क्या है, यहाँ क्या है values, यहाँ पे क्या है facts. It says you need both of them. It is not either or. It is not a zero-sum game. So post-behavioral approach, it tries to resolve fact value dichotomy. And how does it do that? It balances both. And it understands political science cannot be without values. So it balances both facts and values. This is ultimately what will lead to a revival of political theory, mostly strongly seen in the works of John Rawls, A Theory of Justice. Resurgence, revival होगा political theory का. For example, we have John Rawls, The Theory of Justice, published in 1971. But you have to remember, does the traditional approach make the exact comeback or does it change? बताओ. Exact comeback नहीं होगा. It now will transform, because the thesis is there, antithesis is there, synthesis. So this comes back but transformed. It comes back but transformed. This can also be seen. Rawls की theory अगर आप, when you read Rawls theory, this will be our third topic. Rawls uses scientific method also, but Rawls is rooted, based in values like justice. But Rawls will use a original position. Rawls will use a veil of ignorance. So I need to be very sure about that as well. So when I'm looking at this, what is the core idea that we get to know? Revival है, resurgence है, but revival is not the direct repetition of traditional theory. Traditional theory will come but fused with some facts. It's a hybrid mixture now. ये जो पूरी चीज हमने लिखी है, this tells you that the political theory या approaches saw two declines. Yes or no? First decline was traditional approach. Second decline was behavioral approach itself saw a decline. Does this make sense? ये समझ में आ रहा है अच्छे से? Right? If you now understand this, now we will go back to the handout. ठीक, अब हम चीजें और fill करेंगे and we'll make it more precise. ठीक है? But this is very important for your understanding. In case you've not written or missed out writing on any one thing, I'll give you a minute. ये जो चीजें हैं बहुत simplified form में. These kind of jottings you can keep on making down. And your handout also has a couple of blank pages. तो सब कुछ कोशिश करो summarize करके in these 6 pages. Everything is there. Psychologically burden नहीं लगेगा आपको. You'll feel you've compressed so much. Yes or no? Take a minute, just complete this, and then I'll tell you some important aspects. Yes, Leo Strauss. How many of you have done with this? Okay, now what we will be doing, पहले इस पे आते हैं. Okay, first we will be filling this and we will make sure every keyword that is written here you understand. अभी मैं आपको इनमें differences बताऊंगा. I have not yet gone into the nitty gritties of these approaches. ठीक है? And here the focus, method, goal, thinkers, critique is in the same manner what I want or I expect from you. Fine? Okay. ठीक है. Come to this. First table is this. This is normative, empirical, post behavioral. इसके ऊपर पहले we'll be filling the key figures and we'll be filling the criticisms wherever applicable. Fine. The very first table that you have is normative philosophical. Fine. What is normative approach? क्या होती है normative approach? What ought to be, right? Now the term mentioned is antiquity. What is antiquity? Since ancient times, old times to the current times, you have this. Their concern is what ought. I hope this part you are able to understand. Ought का meaning क्या होगा? फिर से बोलो, sorry. हाँ. Ought is what are the values, what are the ideals. Now the method is philosophical in nature. Okay. Now एक जगह छोटा सा लिखो homework अपना. Till now any homework I have given you? नहीं. What is the homework? अच्छा ठीक है, चलो good, आपने लिख लिया है. First homework please write. Why is political science called a science? One of the most common things that is asked in a UPSC interview. अच्छा, व्हाट वाज आई सेइंग, जस्ट प्लीज रिमाइंड मी. अच्छा, होमवर्क कर रहे थे ना. हाँ. तो फर्स्ट इज वाइज पॉलिटिकल साइंस कॉल्ड साइंस. सेकंड लिखो, डिफरेंस बिटवीन इंडक्टिव and deductive reasoning. We will see this when we do WPT. Inductive and deductive reasoning. Inductive and deductive reasoning. ठीक है. Any idea? Tell me what is inductive. हाँ, what is deductive? So you are seeing something happening outside. From that common event, you derive something and then you apply it to something. So there is an inductive approach, there is a deductive approach. Philosophical approach in general is deductive. Right? Method, sorry, यहाँ पे लिखा है, यहाँ also right, conceptual space में, conceptual. Best regime, good life. Okay. Come to key figures. You will tell me who are the key figures. स्टार्ट नहीं करेंगे लियो स्ट्रॉस से, पहले लिखो. सबसे पहले कौन आएगा? सबसे पहले वो इंसान आएगा हु इज द फादर ऑफ पॉलिटिकल फिलोसफी. प्लेटो. हु इज द फादर ऑफ पॉलिटिकल फिलोसफी? प्लेटो. प्लेटो इज फिलोसफी, फिलोसफी इज प्लेटो. तो सबसे पहले यू विल राइट की फिगर्स. प्लेटो. Then you can also write Rousseau. You know the spelling of Rousseau? Rousseau. Now next right, philosophical approach में Hegel. So Plato, Rousseau. अच्छा, what do you remember of Rousseau? General will and popular sovereignty. Where do you see general will and popular sovereignty? Indian preamble. We the people. What is we the people? Same thing. Yes? Okay. Now, tell me the names. Plato, Rousseau, Hegel, and see, my objective always is whatever thinker you are writing, we will not want to force a thinker. हो सकता है आपने जर्मिनो नहीं सुना हो सकता है. The mind today maybe you have not read, but as you move ahead, these are very prominent people who we are quoting. So after every class, your duty should always be know that thinker. I'm not asking you to make notes on them, but at least basic search you should do. So Rousseau, popular sovereignty, general will, right? Third, I think, was Hegel. Now Hegel says a very popular statement. Fate is the march of God on earth. Three thinkers ho gaye, right? Now I'll tell you two modern thinkers. One, of course, you know, Leo Strauss. ये है Leo Strauss, right? Just see the, he destroys facts and logic with values. He will be critical of this approach. Too much of scientific facts. So when there is a criticism of behavioralism, we will again see Leo Strauss, right? And this, right? Michael Oakeshott, इनका बहुत फेमस स्टेटमेंट है. ये आपने सुना है, बाउंडलेस एंड बॉटमलेस सी. इट इज अगेन रिलेटेड टू हिम. कि पॉलिटिकल एक्टिविटी इज अ बाउंडलेस बॉटमलेस सी. ये मैं आपको एंड में लिखवाऊंगा कोट. ये खत्म ही नहीं होगी. This is also what you will say, sir. This is what I feel about my optional. It is a bottomless, boundless sea. It covers everything. There is no end to it. So write the last name is Michael Oakeshoot. How many names have we written? 5. Plato, Rousseau, Hegel, Leo Strauss, Michael Oakeshoot. Now it is very high chance you don't know the last two ones as well. But give it some time, slowly, steadily, you will remember. Today only I'll be quoting Michael Oakeshoot and the other person in some places. Till here are we able to follow? ठीक है? ये जो line है, now come to your handout, come to quote section. Handouts में there's a quote section. Handout बना ही इसलिए है कि जो भी चीज अच्छी मिलेगी आपको, you try to fill this. But if the quotes are overflowing, you have to be very smart. You cannot remember everything. Now you write. आप सिर्फ इतना लिखोगे, in political activity, men sail a boundless and a bottomless sea. ना कोई शुरुआत है, ना कोई अंत. No starting point, no ending point. In political activity, men sail a boundless and bottomless sea. लिख लिया आपने? Come back to the table. So we were seeing key figures. You've seen the key figures. So let's simply write the critique. What is the critique of this philosophical approach? Any idea? Value laden, then speculative. लिख लो, इसको लिखो. Just a couple of keywords we'll write. First लिखो abstract. First keyword is abstract. Second is speculative. Abstract, speculative, and third write value disagreement. That's it. Value disagreement. 3 criticisms. And this same approach I will again be telling you in the next page. So we have time to expand on. अब आप देखो, if you directly now get a question, your mind should be there कि हाँ, which time period roughly from the startings to a long time, what is the concern, what is the method, philosophical, deductive. The goal is to have a good life, a good political life. मेन चीज है हुआ द की फिगर्स. कौन से की फिगर्स हैं? प्लेटो, रूसो, हीगल, लियो स्ट्रॉस, ओकशूट. मैं आपको 5 और बता सकता हूं, पर पॉइंट है फिर याद भी नहीं होंगे. टू मच ऑफ स्कॉलर डंपिंग इज नॉट इवन नीडेड. If I've told you 5, maybe in the exam you'll remember somewhere around 3 to 4, which is good enough. ठीक है? Criticism also very basic criticism that you should be aware of. Now, यहाँ पे I have to give you a clarification. With this, I don't want to make you understand कि empirical approach started from here, but many times you will see this. Now, just to give you an idea. What is the meaning of empirical approach? It is based on observation. It is also based on facts. Now, where do we see the very first empirical approach being used? Aristotle. So this was seen in the works of Aristotle. How come? कैसे? Over 158 constitutions. Okay. Some people even say that Machiavelli also uses some empiricism because looks at the Roman Empire, Caesar Borgia. But also we know Machiavelli uses the historical approach. He is very biased many times in his approach. If I know that empirical approach was seen here, जो टेबल में लिखा है हमारी वो हम इसलिए लिख रहे हैं. This approach overall got a revival in the behavioral sense. In the behavioral revolution, this approach got a revival. ये approach revive हो गई, ये जरूरी है समझना. This approach got a revival in behavioral times. But this does not mean, please don't make a misconception from the table कि अच्छा empirical approach अभी शुरू हुई है. नहीं. If this is the conception in your mind, यहाँ पे लिखो also seen in Aristotle so that you don't get confused. This approach will see a major revival. That is also a point. Okay. Now, it is talking about this is ought, this is fact, behavior. It is scientific, empirical, quant जो लिखा है, quant को लिखो quantitative so that you don't get confused. Quantitative, okay. And also write some spaces there, comma, verification. In 15 minutes from now, you will know all the keywords of behavioral approach. The goal is prediction, the goal is explanation. Right? Now, we have to start with the key figures in the approach. Right? पहला लिख सकते हो Aristotle. But Aristotle, I am saying, if specifically for empirical approach. So write Aristotle in bracket में लिखेंगे empirical so that you don't get confused. Aristotle, empirical approach. Next लिखो comma, Charles Merriam. Charles Merriam. Charles Merriam. Right? Very important for empirical methods. Charles Merriam. Next, Harold Laswell. अभी देखा इनको हमने. Harold Laswell. H. Laswell. Who gets what? When? How? Harold Laswell. And the one and only David Easton. Without David Easton, you cannot do anything here. David Easton. If you have space, you can also write Robert Dahl. Robert Dahl, you will see many times in PSIR, in power also, in democracy also. Robert Dahl, D-A-H-L, Robert Dahl. Now, please quickly repeat the names to me. Aristotle for empirical old approach, but in the modern sense, I need to know names. Charles Merriam, second, Laswell, so now you know. Third, David Easton, authoritative allocation of values, and Robert Dahl. Okay. In fact, if you look at if the mind map that we have drawn, etc., behavioral approach, major people are these two, David Easton and Robert Dahl. Anybody who knows Robert Dahl? Any work? Very good, very good, very good. दोनों चीज सही है, दोनों सही है. Robert Dahl spoke about polyarchy. That US is not just ruled by elites. US has multiple institutions. What is that? Polyarchy. Is that clear? Fine. Okay. Now, what is the? So I think this we have done. Merriam, Laswell, Easton, Dahl, etc. What is the critique of this approach? इस अप्रोच का क्या क्रिटिक होगा आपके हिसाब से? वेरी गुड. फर्स्ट कीवर्ड देखो, हाइपर फैक्चुअलिज्म. हाइपर फैक्चुअलिज्म. सेकंड लिखो, वैल्यू न्यूट्रलिटी इज प्रॉब्लमैटिक। वैल्यू न्यूट्रलिटी इज प्रॉब्लमैटिक, सेकंड इशू। थर्ड, सोशली इररेलेवेंट। Socially irrelevant. And just write down fourth critique in the bracket, write down inverted commas, ivory towers. ये line लिखवाऊंगा थोड़ी देर में. Ivory towers. David Easton will make a line. He will say that political scientists are perfecting their techniques in ivory towers divorced from reality. So there is excessive obsession with the method and they have forgotten the main goal. Method के पीछे पड़ गए हैं वो. They want to make the perfect scientific technique, but that is not useful in political science. Does this make sense? ठीक है? Criticism समझ में आ रहा है इसका? अब आ जाओ next. Post behavioral. एक और चीज, one thing you can do. In post behavioral, in the bracket write down synthesis. In behavioral, think of antithesis. Post behavioralism is synthesis. Behavioral abhi aayega. Behavioral will come. Behavioral approach is an approach which has 8 keywords of David Easton. If you see the next page after this, right now we are seeing an overview of this approach. Behavioral approach is simply, जैसे if you are going too much into the election surveys, studies, everything is made scientific, but problem है that is not solving the problems of modern day also. So behavioral approach का main criticism is it became too much status quoist. ठीक है? Now come to post behavioral. First is of course 1969. Bracket में लिखो यहाँ APSA. David Easton actually gave a speech in APSA in 1969, and that speech became very popular. Right? David Easton का landmark speech है American Political Science Association. So we'll just write APSA. Right? And he actually launched post behavioral movement here. 1969 is important from that angle. Coming back, relevance plus action. So now what he says, two things. You are focusing so much on facts. I want both. I want action, but it should be relevant to the society. Relevance means social aspect, value aspect. So post behavioralism tries to marry both things. It will be relevant, it will also be action oriented. That was the goal of David Easton, right? So basically, to solve the crisis of human nature, right? The method will be pluralist. What is the meaning of pluralist? Involve multiple people, multiple actors, right? Now write the key figures here. Key figures. कौन होगा इसमें? पक्की बात, David Easton. Again David Easton. David Easton, comma Sheldon Wallen, Sheldon Wallen, David Easton, Sheldon Wallen. तीसरा लिखो लियो स्ट्रॉस. लियो स्ट्रॉस की बुक होगी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट, अभी जो देखी थी हमने. एंड लियो स्ट्रॉस विल बी वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट क्रिटिक्स ऑफ फैक्ट एंड लॉजिक. So write his name also, Leo Strauss. And according to him, political science can never be pure science. Political science needs its values. जरूरी है, right? So when you write Leo Strauss, bracket में लिखो critic of behavioral scientific approach. He's a critic of behavioral scientific approach. Right now, in this, actually, there's a very limited criticism because it tries to bring both things together. The only criticism that you can bring is, देखो, relevance may be subjective. Relevance in post behavioral यहां पे लिखेंगे, relevance may be subjective. May be subjective. इसका मतलब क्या है? There are so many groups in a society. Which group will get the highest precedence? This is the challenge. So relevance may be subjective. Right? Second, right? देखो, there are dangers of politicization. Dangers of politicization. Dangers of politicization. Now, the moment post behavioralism happens, we see the resurgence of political theory. इसको हमने क्या लिखा है? Normative 2. क्यों लिखा है normative 2? Because the normative approach, like it existed earlier, it is not the same. It has changed. Right? यहां पे दोनों चीजें हैं. Reasoned argument है, but thought experiment है. What is the thought experiment of Rawls? Two keywords you should know. Original position, bracket में लिखो यहां. Original position, comma, veil of ignorance. It's a thought experiment. So when you see normative approach का revival, the revival is happening in a slightly different manner. It is not like the old normative approach exact. Now the normative approach has also some scientific elements. I have used two keywords. Original position, veil of ignorance. Original position and veil of ignorance. This you will understand in far more detail when I do with you Rawls. Now write the key figures. Of course, it has to be Rawls. Rawls, comma, Nozick. सुना है Nozick? कहाँ पे? Neoliberals. Very good. Rawls, Nozick, comma, Habermas. किस किसने सुना है Habermas? और कुछ? If anybody has done the orientation session, I gave you legitimation crisis. याद है? Keep this in mind. Right? Just write the name Habermas. You will see Habermas in the coming classes also. Next, write Sandel. In case, is there anybody who does not know Sandel? If you have seen, Harvard University की पूरी playlist है. All these lectures are by Michael Sandel. Michael Sandel is one of the most prominent communitarian thinkers. Who is the communitarian thinker? ठीक है? We will be discussing this. Right? If you have time, maybe just watch one of the episodes. Very interesting. When I discuss reservation with you, I will also discuss with you this book. The Tyranny of Merit can also be used in affirmative action. Right? This is Michael Sandel. Resurgence. Now come to the critique of it. अब देखो, what was the approach या critique of normative approach? Right? यहाँ पे भी issue क्या हो सकता है? It can become, again it can become abstract. So right? can again become abstract. First criticism. Second लिखो, competing conceptions of justice. Nozick justice is something else. Rawls justice something else. Communitarian justice is something else. So what are we saying? Competing conceptions of justice. Competing conceptions of justice. Okay. And last you can write a liberal bias can be a criticism. There can be a liberal bias. Liberal bias. Now, what have we done so far is a broad idea we have. Before I move to this, now we will quickly revise. Okay? I will ask you and you will tell me. We started with philosophical normative approach. What is the goal of this approach? What ought to be? What was the method? Deductive, right? Normative. Who are the key thinkers? मुझे 5 नाम चाहिए. प्लेटो, रूसो, हीगल, लियोस्ट्रॉस, माइकल ओकशोट. इतना भी बोल पा रहे हो, एक्सीलेंट है. If you are attending these classes live or offline, I will make sure you will remember most of the things in the class itself. एक बार बस रिवाइज करना घर जाके, मैक्सिमम चीजें दिमाग में रहेंगी. I asked you many times questions. What is the critique of this approach? Value laden, good. Abstract, non-scientific, all of that, correct. This is the normative philosophical approach. I know a broad idea. Second one was empirical behavioral approach. Many people don't know behavioral approach, they only know David Easton. इसलिए मैंने आपको इतने नाम लिखवाए हैं. If I say empirical approach, it finds its roots in Aristotle. But if I say behavioral approach, सबसे important person कौन होगा? David Easton. But we have also done Charles Merriam. We have also done Robert Dahl. अच्छा नहीं, behavioral approach में नहीं बोलेंगे. Behavioral approach में आप किसको बोलोगे? Charles Merriam, Laswell, Dahl, of course David Easton. ठीक है? Is this clear? And what is the criticism of this approach? Hyperfactualism. Then value neutrality will have its challenges, etc. ठीक है? 2. Third thing was ivory towers. Very good. Okay. Third thing we had seen was post behavioralism. Who will give a speech in 1969? David Easton. वहां पे वो 7 चीजें बताएंगे जो आपके हैंडआउट में आगे हैं. We will see. Post behavioralism wants to resolve fact value dichotomy. वो दोनों चीज को साथ लाएगा. Right? Now, who are the key figures? David Easton, then Sheldon, Wallin, and Leo Strauss will be actually a criticism of behavioral scientific approach, but in that sense he will also be saying भाई अच्छी चीज है ये post behavioralism. Fine. What is the criticism of post behavioralism? अब same चीज है. It is going to be subjective, तो आप कहीं भी use, you can use it anywhere. Now I go to the resurgence of political approach. एक चीज ये है, ये जो है ना टेबल आपकी, this is also overlapping. ऐसा नहीं दोनों चीजें totally अलग हैं. It is not like that. The moment you have post behavioral approach, you see this almost in the resurgence of political theory. But I've just made it separate so that you do not get confused. There is an overlap. ये दोनों चीजें ऐसा नहीं कि totally mutually exclusive है. No. Precisely because facts and values came together, that led to resurgence of political theory. So don't make that mistake कि these two are two separate things. Because sir आपने टेबल बना दी थी. अपना माइंड भी तो लगाएंगे. Yes. What is resurgence? Resurgence के लिए the one person that is quoted is Rawls, and which is why मैं आपको बुक्स के ईयर बता रहा हूं. यहाँ पे Rawls book is 1971 and यहाँ पे the speech is there. टाइम भी ओवरलैप हो रहा है. Right? Now, thought experiments, reasoned argument. Who are the thinkers here? Rawls, Nozick. What is the theory of Nozick known as? Entitlement theory of justice. तीसरा, Sandel, Habermas. ये सब नाम देखे हमने. What is the criticism? Sorry, justice has, different conceptions of justice. Next, abstract. Next, liberal bias. There can be a liberal bias. Does this make sense? Fine. Now you have a mini topic, traditional approach. In this also write in the bracket, overlaps with paper 2A. Paper 2A may we do this in more detail, but still anyways we will be doing it here also. Paper 2A में when we do comparative politics, उसमें भी हम ये पढ़ते हैं, right? So right, overlaps with paper 2A. अब philosophical is going to be very easy for you. अब ये आप on the spot खुद भरेंगे अभी. This already we have done. Traditional approach में main approach is philosophical approach. You know what ought to be? Deductive, speculative. अब यहाँ पे देखो key thinkers. Tell me 5 key thinkers. Plato, Rousseau, Hegel, Leo Strauss, Oakeshott. लिखो. Write it. Wherever you have space, यहाँ पे एक टर्म लिखा है, इसको अंडरलाइन करो, a priori. Here also you can write, because here the space is given to expand on philosophical approach. इसी के नीचे लिखो a priori, put a dash. A priori, put a dash and write. Knowledge or reasoning, this is the meaning of a priori. Knowledge or reasoning derived independently, knowledge or reasoning derived independently of direct empirical observation, derived independently of direct empirical observation, mainly through logic, mainly through logic. So this means it is simply logical in nature. यहाँ पे comma करके you can also write logical. You will see a lot of reasoning and logic used in philosophical approach, but there is no scientific element to it. Right? Now, key thinkers, have you written the key thinkers? Philosophical approach, लिख लिया आपने? What is the critique? अभी करा हमने, बताओ. Abstract, speculative, prescriptive, value laden, all these are critiques. Write it again. This was the question of 2025, by the way. So it should be that exam से पहले आपको सब याद है on the tips. That is what is needed. Abstract, speculative, value laden, all of this, right? You can write. And see, below there is a space that is there. इसको कैसे use कर सकते हो? Please make a table. Some things I will tell you here. A couple of quotes related to any of them I will also add. Anything extra if you want to add later on, the space is there for this. Entire page is for the traditional approaches. I hope that is clear to you. तो ये सारा space आप use करोगे, ठीक है? अब आते हैं historical approach. How many of you have heard historical approach? सुना है? Tell me any thinker. Lasky, Sabine and Machiavelli. 3 thinkers तो आप ही ने बता दिए. Good. Anything else? Dunning, again, good. Right? What is the idea of historical approach? We will use history, right? The events that have happened. But what will be the problem of historical approach? History is always written by the victors, dominant section. So history will always be biased. Hmm? Bilkul, right? This is history is there. Second thing, for example, how many of you know Karl Popper? When was Karl Popper present in which century or which? हाँ मतलब 20th century में है. Who is he criticizing? Plato. समझ रहे difference? What is this known as? If देखो this, if you're criticizing somebody who is very different in a very different time and age, this is also a challenge, by the way, right? Because you don't know in which times Plato was, what was the context of the society. If he was a contemporary, he can have a very good criticism. That is the point I'm trying to make, right? Similarly, when you read at historical accounts, सुना आपने एने अकबरी, तजुके बाबरी, for example, the issue is sometimes they may glorify or they may actually criticize excessively. So historical cheese, hamesha there will be a bias. That should be very clear to us. So past events, evolution, yes. It is narrative in nature. It is evolutionary, yes. We learn the lessons of past. Directly come to thinkers. Thinkers में लिखो Machiavelli, Lasky, Machiavelli, Lasky, Hegel, Karl Marx, Hegel, Karl Marx. 4 thinkers are enough. Before I move ahead, philosophical के साथ जो भी आपके पास स्पेस बच रहा है, now write, leave some 4 or 5 lines in philosophical, write historical. Now I will be telling you some quotes. हिस्टोरिकल अप्रोच में लिखो एक बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग कोट है, हिस्ट्री इज पास्ट पॉलिटिक्स, हिस्ट्री इज पास्ट पॉलिटिक्स एंड पॉलिटिक्स इज present history. These kind of quotes come in the essay. History is past politics and history is past politics and politics is present history. First thing. Second, write Machiavelli. History is a better guide than philosophy to prince. History is a better guide than philosophy to prince. लास्की का बहुत फेमस लाइन है, मेनी ऑफ यू नो, एवरी चाइल्ड इज द थिंकर ऑफ हिज टाइम्स. एवरी चाइल्ड, oh sorry, every thinker is the child of his times. Every thinker, I think I said the opposite initially. Every thinker is a child of his times. Now, when I say Karl Marx, how do I say Karl Marx uses history? The history of all hitherto societies is the history of class struggle. Good. What is this? Historical materialism. So, likho this. You can write your quote. The history of all hitherto classes is a history of class struggle. The history of all HITHERTO, the history of all hitherto classes is a history of class struggle. Bracket में historical materialism. Historical materialism. Please tell me how many thinkers have we written in this? So tell me the names. Machiavelli, Lasky, Hegel, Marx. ठीक है. अब ये these are traditional thinkers. Also write this person. जॉर्ज सेमाइन लिखना पड़ेगा हमें, राइट, जॉर्ज सेमाइन, very prominent person. In fact, his book is History of Political Theory. So write the name George Semaine, important person in historical approach. Come to criticism of historical approach. What will be? पहला लिखो descriptive. First criticism is it is descriptive. Semaine is a very prominent recent scholar who uses historical approach. इससे पहले you have seen thinkers, traditional thinkers. So there are scholars who will work on this. This is Semaine, Dunning. They will do a lot of work. Semaine, by the way, if you have read Machiavelli, Machiavelli को Semaine criticize करते हैं. What does he say? Yes, Semaine is narrowly dated, narrowly located. This is something we will see in Machiavelli. ठीक है? पहला इशू क्या है? It is descriptive criticism. Second लिखो, past may not explain present. Past may not explain the present. Third लिखो, historicism. What is historicism? ब्रैकेट में लिखो biased use of history. Biased use of history. Biased use of history. चौथा क्रिटिसिज्म लिखो, I told you, ये टर्म लिखो anachronistic. This is from chronology. If Karl Popper is criticizing Plato, both of them in different time and space, anachronistic sometimes can be this. So anachronistic लिखो, something which is placed in wrong historical context. In the bracket write anachronistic में लिखो, judging the past through present day standards. Anachronistic means judging the past through present day standards. Now, when I will explain to you Aristotle and Plato, in those times slavery was natural. In current times, slavery cannot be justified. If you are judging Plato and Aristotle on modern day standards, what is that? Anachronistic. I hope you understand, right? Now, this part is clear. So quickly tell me the thinkers of historical approach. Machiavelli, Lasky, Hegel, Marx, Semaine. More than sufficient. I'm saying more than sufficient. This will also make a very strong base for you in paper 2A, which is why I'm spending some time. Okay? Two things we have seen: philosophical approach, historical approach. Come to the third one. What is the third one? Institutional approach. अब देखो, institutional में simple सी चीज है. The focus of this approach is on institutions. Institution can be parliament, right? Legal approach में main चीज क्या होगी? Can be constitution, acts, statutes, whatever is there, right? So institutional approach, any formal structure of the state, right? Formal structure state बहुत जगह क्या होता है? It can be a parliament, for example, right? Legislature, executive, judiciary, etc., etc. So that is one. It is descriptive in nature. Now, institutional approach can be comparative. This is something that we do in more detail in paper 2A. उसका काम ही है ये comparative governments, different constitutions has to be summarized, understood. Okay? You will map governmental organs. Now here you write, किस इंसान की याद आ रही है हमें सबसे पहले? Somebody who compared 158 constitutions. लिखो Aristotle, bracket 158. You link it to what you have read, you will remember. Aristotle 158. अब यहां पे एक इंसान बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट, मॉन्टेस्क्यू. What does Montesquieu say? Separation of powers, executive, legislature, judiciary. Second person, Montesquieu. Third लिखो, James Bryce. This you will remember if you have done your paper 2A. नहीं है तो अभी नाम लिखो, James Bryce. Right, James Bryce. Next, right, Walter. This Begehot, Begehot, whatever you say. Walter. Right. And last देखो, Woodrow Wilson. किस किसी ने नाम सुना है? What did he say? 14 points and League of Nations, collective security. So Woodrow Wilson will also talk about institutions. According to him, persons cannot be trusted, nations cannot be trusted, but institutions can be trusted. So Woodrow Wilson, you know. Right? Now, what will be a challenge of this approach? सोच के बताओ. देखो, first critique, formalistic. It is very formal in nature, formalistic. Second, excessively state-centric. It ignores individuals, society. Yes or no? Excessively state-centric. Next, it ignores actual behavior. It ignores actual behavior and informal power. Actual behavior and informal power. Last obvious है Eurocentrism. What is Eurocentrism? Treating Western type as the ideal type. So in reality, नाम है comparative, but they do not give much value to developing countries, etc. For them, their model is the ideal type. This is the criticism. Make sense? ठीक है? It's a formalistic, right? State-centric, ignores actual behavior, informal power, right? Now come to legal. Last one is legal. Legal is rooted in texts, that is constitutions, right? Now here directly come to the scholars that you need to be aware of. Right? Jeremy Bentham. नाम सुना है? In which context? Utilitarianism, the greatest good for greatest number. One is Jeremy Bentham. Second name, right? John Austin. This you will again read in Monistic Theory of Sovereignty. Austin. Third, right? This I think most of you are aware of. सुना है ना, rule of law. A.V. Dicey, right? Now he is very specifically working on the legal approach. A.V. Dicey, right? Rule of law, all of this. So three prominent names. What are the three names? Jeremy Bentham, then, right? Then A.V. Dicey. And A.V. Dicey, you will remember rule of law will be important for the discussion. ठीक, last लिख लो. Ivor Jennings, Casey Weir, all these are prominent names. Ivor Jennings had called, this is a PSIR PYQ, Indian Constitution is a lawyer's paradise. Ivor Jennings. What did Casey Weir say? India is quasi-federal. Very good. सुना है नाम Casey Weir, right? Ivor Jennings. Now this is something you have seen in the paper 1B also. Fine. Okay. क्रिटिसिज्म में लिखो, इन द क्रिटिसिज्म, लीगल रिडक्शनिज्म, everything is reduced to law, legal reductionism. क्रिटिसिज्म क्या है? लीगल रिडक्शनिज्म. नेक्स्ट लिखो, स्टैटिक, स्टैटिक, थर्ड राइट, it ignores gap, it ignores gap between law and political reality, it ignores gap between law and political reality, gap between law, political reality. Does this make sense? ठीक है. Okay, now some additional space is there. Later on, if you want to add anything, you can add it. Major points we have done here in detail. All the aspects related to this. ठीक है. यहाँ पे एक चीज लिखी है, philosophical approach के key features. Okay. Can you tell me some key features of philosophical approach? Hmm? Any features of philosophical approach that you are aware of? सोच के बताओ. चलो, what we will now do, please open a blank sheet, something apart from this, right? And always be mentally prepared whenever you coming to a class. एक ना एक आंसर तुम लिखेंगे, ठीक है? I'm directly taking a PYQ. What we have done till now. पहला क्वेश्चन लिखो. This is a question of 2025, and we will keep it. You have to write in short bursts. ठीक है? The question is, explain the philosophical approach to the study of political theory. Explain philosophical approach explain the philosophical approach to the study of political theory. In case if you want to use your notes, abhi ke liye use kar sakte ho. This is your, in that sense, first class. I will be setting a timer. Whatever you know, I have also given you a framework to write this answer. कोशिश करेंगे उसको यूज करेंगे. The question is, explain the philosophical approach to the study of political theory. 5 मिनट है, जितना भी लिख पाओ, right? Broad idea भी, if you are able to have it, that is also fine. Think of this as a 10 marker right now. People who are watching this online, for you also the timer is there. Try to write. बहुत कुछ रिकॉल होगा आपको ऐसे अगर आप लिखोगे क्लास में लाइव. This is a good exercise to engage in. Yes, Rajesh, this is happening live. See, this Joseph Nye is not needed, right? Very modern approach. We are only talking of institutionalism as a traditional approach. Joseph Nye, that is a modern approach. Yes, Amartya can also come in resurgence. Your introduction is good. अच्छा लिखा है. ठीक है, good transition. Okay, good introduction. देखो, you read, I'm reading. Solid intro, good. काफी लिख दिया. Entire page. Could be better. Theory दोनों चीज को अपने एक साथ मर्ज करिए, बताता हूँ. What ought to be next? Again, this approach stands for what ought to be. Repetition. I can see some inertia अभी. थोड़ा टाइम लग रहा है लिखने में. Despite everything in front of you. अब देखो आपको. हाँ, जब on. अच्छा, you only wanted to write in one page. पूरे इस पे खत्म किया है ना? अच्छा, इसमें ना वैसे good attempt amongst all the people in general, right? What we can do is we can expand on this part also. आपका criticism बहुत जल्दी शुरू हो गया. 4 pages पे हम जा ही नहीं पाए. ठीक है? But इट्स अ गुड वे, ठीक है। चलो एक काम मैं करता हूँ ना, व्हाट यू हैव रिटन आई जस्ट टेक अ पिक एंड ड्रॉप इन द ग्रुप, पीपल कैन आल्सो नो practically speaking what we can write in a short span. This is again, I'll be sending this to a group, but please remember this is not the perfect answer. I'm just sharing what is one of the response of students within 5 minutes. They'll वापस को और इसमें भी what are the improvements, what can be done. I think those of you who are in the group can already see the first answer that I've shared. अब देखो, some things which I've just observed, I think I've seen around 10 odd answers. किस चीज को इंट्रोडक्शन में टाइम लगा सोचने में, लगा है टाइम, which is why you could not directly start and write. Okay. Second thing is how to make sentences one by one. Okay. Abhi you've just read the topic, you are not very clear. Goal should come, right? Method, thinkers. The faster this happens, this is actually one of the easier questions. Fine. Ab dekho, right now, this let's say a part if I use for writing, if I'm brainstorming, you did not have the liberty of brainstorming, that is okay. I need to have an introduction. There will be a body. There should be a conclusion. अब इंट्रोडक्शन में सवाल क्या है, स्टडी ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी. Some of you have mentioned that political theory के बारे में एक लाइन लिख दी, and then you have linked it to political theory can be analyzed through various approaches, and traditional approach is one, and traditional say you have moved to philosophical approach. ठीक है, it's a slightly longer way to go about it, but maybe that is one approach you have taken. Second approach here can be directly, okay, starting, even you can also start directly with philosophical approach. कैसे लिख सकते हैं? It is one of the oldest traditions to analyze, evaluate political theory. This is one way to introduce. मैं A लिख रहा हूं इसमें. One of the oldest, मुझे कुछ सोचना ही नहीं है, मैंने सीधे लिख दिया इसको. Another way to introduce is political theory has been analyzed by various approaches. Like, अब क्वेश्चन अगर philosophical है, you already know you are going to criticize philosophical approach by which approach? Empirical approach. So political theory has been largely analyzed by philosophical and empirical approaches. And then you say, अब देखो, because you have mentioned two things, एक दो लोगों ने शायद ऐसा भी लिखा है, you can, this is known as a comparative introduction. While philosophical approach deals with what ought to be, empirical approach deals with what is, एक ये तरीका है, another way to introduce. But the main point is drop this, मतलब mention करो और आगे बढ़ो. Introduction should not take too much of time. The more you read it, the better it will get over a period of time. ठीक? अगर मैंने इतना कर लिया, I know my introduction is done. This second thing, इसको बोलते हैं comparative introduction. Comparative introductions are more trickier to write because you need to compare two things. But this has more weight. But ये भी कर सकते हो, इसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. So one thing is this. I've talked about it. Now in the body, like I have told you, some things that you should imbibe. You will talk about the goal, methods and thinkers. Okay, अब जरूरी नहीं है you always use the same sequence. You can play along. You can directly perhaps start with Plato, right? Socrates and Plato examined the cause, the case of a good life through Socratic, what was the dialectics, reasoning, deductive approach. They used a priori, your first principle thinking, to arrive at the answers or to arrive at the tough questions of the world. Right? Philosophical approach is also seen in the works of Rousseau, who talked about X, or Hegel, who spoke about this. Right? Philosophical approach does not just describe, but it aims to criticize. हमने लिखा है आज Dante Germino. It is an intellectual tradition that looks at man's existence from a critical perspective. I can talk about that. मैंने बता दिया सब कुछ. अब ये डिपेंड करता है आपने कितने अच्छे से पढ़ रखा है. If you revise your topics, keywords well, this you will do. But you have to talk about criticism. What will be the criticism of this approach? अब आप ऐसे लिख सकते हो. Behavioral or empirical approach criticizes philosophical approach for being abstract, अगर टाइम कम है, abstract, comma, value based, comma, speculative and divorced from reality. ठीक. अब मुझे कंक्लूजन लिखना है. I will link it. लिखो however, yet despite the criticism, philosophical approach played a major part, या plays a major part in understanding the ideals of society. Or this approach recently saw its revival in the works of Leo Strauss, Michael Oakeshott, etc. उस तरह से लिंक कर सकते हो. These are some variations. The more mental practice you do in your mind, the faster it is. Now, your question in your mind should be, sir, इसको तेज कैसे हम करें? How should we do it? उसका आंसर I'll tell you. How many of you have seen the orientation session? किस किसने देख रखा है orientation? ठीक. उसमें मैंने आपसे क्या बोला है? After every class gets done, you will have a separate copy of PYQ structuring. You will write the PYQ, leave 2-3 pages. In the first page of that, make a draft. In the draft, you are not supposed to write the answer. Just say, this is like a draft I've made in front of you. I will just fill the details. That means if my draft is ready, I will be able to write the answer. This is what you have to do. Right? Up, the more drafting, अगर आपने ये कर लिया, behavioral, institutional, this also we have done today. Right? Behavioral approach अभी करेंगे just. So this will give you a lot of clarity on how to generate points faster. And if this is something you've done for the entire unit and units again and again, your point generation, writing in the answer will, in the class will improve. ठीक है. तो आज क्या होगा, आपका एक होमवर्क है, you will again rewrite this answer and share. And don't be shy away from writing and rewriting again. The more you write, the better it is. अगली बार क्वेश्चन ऑन द स्पॉट लिख लोगे फिर आप. ठीक है. Now, so we have seen this. अच्छा, यहाँ पे I think this part is there, and after that I'll just go through this part as well. If anybody wants to have a water break, you want a break, या you want? हाँ, कितने मिनट का चाहिए? 5 मिनट, 10 minutes break चाहिए? तो 2-3 लोग बोल, चलो ठीक है. Take a small break. We'll resume after a break. I will complete this section so that you can revise better at your places. And again, as we know, Rakhi and all is going on. There is a festive time. गायब हो जाओगे आप सब. चलो, we meet after 10 minutes. Fine. Small 10 minutes break we have. People online also. We will be meeting after 10 minutes. Okay, so welcome back. We will now be continuing. So we were talking about how to structure that answer. I think we've had some discussions. Don't worry. पहला आंसर है जिसने लिखा है. It will take some time. You will get better at it. And by the way, I only gave you 5 minutes. In subsequent classes, I'll also give you 8 minutes and also 10 minutes. ठीक है? So थोड़ा थोड़ा स्टैमिना बनेगा. Good thing is आप लिख पा रहे हो. पिछली क्लास में भी I think some of you send me the answer on MECA pack. किसी से नहीं सेंड किया अभी तक? I know जिसने नहीं सेंड किया है. ठीक है? तो लिखेंगे. You have done the current affairs class पीछे? अच्छा आपकी मिस हुई है. अच्छा. Were you able to complete the class? नहीं. अच्छा ओके ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है फाइन. बट ठीक है डोंट मेंटेन बैकलॉग. थोड़ी लंबी क्लास है बट वेरी एक्सटेंसिव क्लास ऑन करंट अफेयर्स. इट्स अ न्यू क्लास. ठीक है नो इश्यूज. नाउ फर्स्ट लेट्स राइट अ कपल ऑफ पॉइंट्स. ये है हमारी हेडिंग philosophical approach and the key features. Okay, I'll tell you a couple of points. Some of you sometimes have a doubt ki let's say this question comes 20 marks mein, how do I expand? Okay, and see in other two इनकी टेंशन मत लो, ये 2A में और डिटेल में होंगे. 1A में इससे ज्यादा पूछते भी नहीं है. ठीक है. हेलो, लास्ट टाइम है you were also doing this in yesterday's class. ठीक है. This is a proper class. I want proper discipline in my class. ठीक है. Now philosophical approach, we are talking about key features, basic things you already know. What is the goal of philosophical approach? पता है अपने को? What is the method? Right, deductive है. You will now use this term deductive, a priori, right? This is something, but there are some more features about the approach you should be aware of. क्योंकि philosophical approach is a core approach. Second, इस approach का एक और आंसर मिलेगा आपको when I do Plato with you. When I will tell you the answer of Plato is philosophy, philosophy is Plato. ठीक है. So on this you will write a couple of lines. पहला लिखो. First feature लिखो. It has a normative orientation. First feature, it has the normative orientation. Dash, it asks what ought to be. What ought to be. Second, ideal seeking. Ideal seeking, put a dash. It evaluates existing institutions. It evaluates existing institutions against the standards of good state. It evaluates existing institutions against the standards of good state and just society. Good state and just society. Third, right, concerned with ideals like justice, liberty. It is concerned with ideals like justice, liberty, equality, rights. Next लिखो prescriptive. It is not descriptive, it is prescriptive. Put a dash and write. Not only explains politics, it not only explains politics but suggests how politics should be organized. Suggests how politics should be organized. Next keyword, it is holistic. होलिस्टिक, होलिस्टिक देखो, लिंक्स पॉलिटिक्स विद एथिक्स, होलिस्टिक लिंक्स पॉलिटिक्स with ethics, comma philosophy and human purpose. Ethics, philosophy, human purpose. Bracket में of course you can write Plato and Aristotle. Plato, Aristotle, and last write universalist tendencies. It has universalist tendencies. Put a dash. It searches for principles. It searches for principles applicable beyond. It searches for principles applicable beyond a particular time or society. Principles which are applicable beyond time and society. You have now enough points to explain what is philosophical approach. Now just quickly read out the key words to me. First one is normative orientation. Next, ideals seeking. Third, ideas, right? Fourth, prescriptive. Next, holistic. Next, right? So more than sufficient. इसके beyond क्या बचता है? Method that is being used. What is that? Deductive, a priori. Thinkers already we know. Criticism we know. Bring everything together. If you get this as a 20 marker, criticism में empirical approach थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा expand कर देंगे, so you will be able to complete this properly, right? Now this answer will get even better after you complete WPT, because PSIR में क्या है? Many concepts are interrelated, right? So that will help. So that is the whole idea. So we have covered the historical approaches, the traditional approaches. We've had an idea on the evolution of political theory, right? Now come to the last page. अभी पढ़ा था हमने behavioralism, right? Now we are again looking at this. Fine. Now what you have is, you have a great debate, वो हम देखेंगे, and then we'll also see how to use all of this in your answers. Now if you look at the 8 intellectual foundations of behavioralism, this is something that you have to remember, right? There are 2 speeches actually in APSA, right? Initial one is this. This speech or this tells you the 8 foundations of behavioralism, right? Again the question should be there, why behavioralism came, क्यों आई? Because of limitations of traditional approach. Traditional approach could not answer the issues around word war. It was value laden, it was prescriptive, ये सारे issues थे. This led to which issue? Decline of political theory, right? And we see the intellectual foundations of behavioralism. Now let's quickly see this. First one is read your notes. पहला क्या है? Regularities you have to find. You have to look for some uniformities. You have to go for verification. You should have some techniques. You should be able to quantify. What is quantify? To be able to measure things. You should have values. Okay, but values में क्या है? Ethical valuation should be separate from empirical. So values के against होगा, because the older approach is going to be closer to this. Next, everything is systematized, organized, right? Make it pure science. आगे देखेंगे pure science नहीं हो सकता. It cannot be pure science. And last is integration with, तो यहां ब्रैकेट में लिखो interdisciplinary. It should be interdisciplinary. right? It should be interdisciplinary. That is one thing that we should be aware of. Now, what we are going to do here, यहाँ पे great debate लिखिए. Same thing we will see. In the great debate आप लिखो bracket में decline and revival of political theory. Decline and revival. Decline and revival of political theory. Fine. So first, within this space, the heading that you have, again you can divide possibly in 2 pages or 2 halves. In the first part, पहली heading लिखो debate, decline of political theory. First point लिखो, देखो पीटर जो 2 thinkers हैं, Harold Lastwell, this is last let, 2 different people. Peter Lastlet, put a dash. This is one of the most famous statements, inverted commas लिखो, for the moment anyway political theory is dead. For the moment anyway political theory is dead. For your reference, this was a statement made in 1956. For the moment anyway political theory is dead. Full stop. इसके नीचे लिखो, देखो, the decline was largely a decline in the decline was largely a decline in the confidence in traditional normative political philosophy. The decline was largely a decline of confidence in traditional normative political philosophy. ठीक है, लेकिन नेक्स्ट लिखो, after fascism, communism and World War II, after fascism, communism and World War II, some scholars believed that grand political ideologies had exhausted themselves. Some scholars believed grand political ideologies had exhausted themselves. Right? So 2 main things we have written. First is Lastlet. He says, for the moment anyway, political theory is dead. After this, what did we write? It was a decline of normative traditional political philosophy. And a contextual explanation is fascism, communism, World War II के बाद लग रहा था, what it was seeing, that political ideologies has exhausted itself. It is not able to explain the phenomena. It is not able to address the demands of people. Does this make sense? ठीक है? This will lead to the rise of behavioralism. Okay. So after this decline may write the next heading. Now, and most of these things are summarized, but ये आपको समझ में तब आएगा when you've written in simple words. Right? Behavioralism. Now write. The behaviorism or behavioral approach, whatever you write, both things are correct. Now, right? It was a revolution. Behavioral approach में it was a revolution to change the frameworks, terminologies, to change frameworks, terminologies, and subjects of inquiry. Change the frameworks, terminologies, and subject of inquiry. Second point, देखो, it was influenced by positivism. अच्छा, इसका this does not mean you have to be positive. What is positivism? बिल्कुल सही. So a logical positivist is somebody who will empirically verify every statement. If they are not able to empirically verify any statement, उनके लिए वो statement valid ही नहीं है. Right? So positivism में just for your reference, right? In bracket. देखो, for them, normative approach is unverifiable. Positivism में normative approach is what? Unverifiable. Yes. So what is the main thing? Positivists जो हैं उस समय के, they have influenced behavioral approach, right? And this will be then later on led by David Easton, अभी जो हमने देखा, right? So we have written there was an influence of positivism and led by, again the same body, APSA, led by American Political Science Association, in the bracket, right? David Easton, Robert Dahal. David Easton, Robert Dahal. Okay. Next लिखो, this approach focused on facts. This approach focused on facts, observation, measurement. This approach focused on facts, observation, measurement, and predictions to explain the events of 20th century. To explain the events of 20th century. Events of 20th century, right? Now, इसी के नीचे लिखो, बस एक लिखो 8, David Easton 8, which means you again have to revisit this. What are the 8 foundations of behavioralism? आपके सामने लिखा हुआ है. But now you will understand in the most organic manner. और अगर आंसर डिक्लाइन पे आ रहा है, कोशिश करेंगे लास्ट लेट को लिखेंगे. लास्ट लेट इज वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट फिगर्स हु टॉक्ड अबाउट. क्या लिखा था हमने? फॉर द मोमेंट एनीवे is dead, and he is talking about the normative political philosophy which has exhausted itself, which is not able to answer. These are the 8 keywords. Try करेंगे, याद करें. But in the answer, even if you write 4 of them, it is okay. The question will never say write down all the 8. It is not like an MCQ question. If you remember, excellent. If it is a 20 marker, then it helps to remember this. So हमारा मतलब how to write an answer on behavioralism, you always have to explain the problems of traditional political philosophy, go into behavioralism, but answer वहां खत्म नहीं होगा. Behavioralism has its own challenges, right? Now, right, criticism of behavioralism. Criticism, already we have done this in the big table, small, but यहाँ पे this will be more specific. Criticism of behavioralism. अब देखो, behavioralist had criticized who? Traditionalist. वो भी बदला लेंगे ना, वो भी बैठे हुए हैं. The first criticism is by traditionalists. Traditionalists. What traditionalists will say, जो हमने बोला, whatever we said, you are also saying the same thing, but you have spent so much of money on your techniques, labs, and verification. What is the difference? Just that you are using jargons, you've complicated the things, but your analysis is no different than ours. Okay, so right, traditionalists, they have not produced any different results. They have not produced any different results and are only obsessed with scientific methods. They have not produced any different results and are only obsessed with scientific methods. Second लिखेंगे David Easton. This will be the most important criticism. Which keyword do you remember of Easton? Ivory Towers. और ये line we will cram. David Easton, right? लिखो, political scientists sitting in ivory towers. Political scientists sitting in ivory towers, perfecting their techniques, comma, isolated from public, and not producing anything relevant for society. So he criticized traditionalists, now he is criticizing behavioralists. Not producing anything relevant for the society. इसको आप ivory tower से याद रखोगे, right? Political scientists sitting in ivory towers, perfecting their techniques, right? Isolated from public, not producing anything relevant, right? Third लिखो, Karl Popper, third criticism. These two have to be in your answer, traditionalist and David Easton. Now then it depends on the nature of the question, but I'll tell you a couple of. Karl Popper. लिखो, it was mindless empiricism. Mindless empiricism. कि wherever जहां नहीं भी लगना चाहिए वहां भी लगाया scientific method. Mindless empiricism. Right? And D is Marxist. Marxists will say, they claim that they are value neutral, but they are not value neutral. They are not value neutral. This is the problem. Not value neutral. ठीक है? What is the then? According to Marxists, they are just like traditionalists only. Traditionalists were also, they were value laden, and they are saying they are not value neutral. Same. This is a challenge. Clear hai? So again, see, we have seen decline of political theory. We have seen emergence of behavioralists. Who influenced behavioralists? Positivism and American Political Science Association, led by David Easton and Dahal. देखा हमने? They wanted to have facts, empiricism, verification, and there are 8 keywords of David Easton. Fine. After this, we see the criticism of behavioralists. बचेंगे तो ये भी नहीं. Traditionalists, David Easton, Ivory Towers, I will remember. Karl Popper says this is nothing but mindless empiricism. And lastly is Marxist. They will say they are not value neutral. This is a very strong criticism of behavioralism. What this will lead to? Post behavioralism. Post behavioralism. तो इसमें लिखो, I have to build a context first, right? By the late 1960s, even behavioralists recognized, by the late 1960s, even the behavioralists recognized the limitations of value neutral political science. Value neutral political science. Right? Likho, according to David Easton, it is better to be relevant. It is better to be relevant and somewhat precise. It is better to be relevant and somewhat less precise. Than extremely precise about politically trivial questions. Extremely precise about politically trivial questions. Right? Now, we see a keyword here. The moment you see post behavioralism, यहाँ पे keyword आएगा, 1969 में address है, underline this keyword, credo of relevance. Now, this I will just explain to you. The most important keyword in this is credo of relevance. Earlier what was happening? Scientific method was applied to anything that you can think of. But now David Easton will say and other people will say substance ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है than the technique. You should not go for mindless scientific explanation. Political science cannot become pure science. So what should be done? You have to have social relevance. Relevance ज़रूरी है. And for that the term is credo of relevance. Now, in behavioralism, do I see 8 things? In post behavioralism there are 7 things. But आप ये keyword लिखना ही है आपको. The most important keyword is credo of relevance, and there are 7 things here. Substance is greater than technique. Action science. Everything should be actionable. Normally problem क्या होती है? Ideas are not actionable. Very philosophical in nature. Action science. It should be relevant to the urgent issues. Values cannot be excluded. पहले क्या था? value neutrality. Then you have to protect humane values. Zaruri hai. Knowledge, whatever knowledge is there, should lead to action. This also tells you the traditional approach was only knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. Socrates is saying knowledge is virtue, and Foucault says knowledge is power. देखेंगे Foucault को आगे. It says knowledge should convert to action. Okay, now the voice should be fine. It says politicization is not a bad thing. You cannot be politically neutral all the times. So politicization of profession is a fine thing. Okay. This is something important. This is the core of post behavioralism. Fine. So what have you written, Abhi? What was the last thing that you wrote? That is the last thing. Okay, then write PB, post behavioralism. Post behavioralism did not reject scientific methods. It did not reject scientific methods. Full stop. It rejected the behavioralist claim. It rejected the behavioralist claim that methodological precision and value neutrality should dominate relevance. Methodological precision and value neutrality should dominate relevance. Full stop. Now whenever the question is on this, कैसे end करेंगे इसको लिखो. देखो, if traditional approach is thesis, comma, behavioral approach is antithesis. Then post behavioralism is synthesis. It is synthesis. Full stop. Then write political knowledge should respond to war, comma, poverty, inequality, racial injustice. Political knowledge should respond to war, poverty, inequality, racial injustice. Full stop. Likho. The knowledge is not merely for understanding society. The knowledge is not for merely understanding the society, but it must also contribute to reconstruction and improvement. It must also contribute it must also contribute to reconstruction and improvement. Reconstruction and improvement. अब देखो, till now, have we also covered decline of political theory? And we've also covered decline happened in how many phases? Two phases. Decline of traditional approaches, decline of behavioral approaches. Tell me criticism of behavioral approach. सोचो पहले, who will criticize behavioral approach? Traditionalist, then David Easton himself, Marxist, even Karl Popper. Who is Karl Popper? He is actually a liberal and he's an interwar intellectual during the war times. Okay? So that is the criticism. If you now get this, is question has come at least 3 to 4 times. Decline, decline, decline. बहुत अच्छे से आंसर लिख सकते हो इसका. Right? The last thing for the day, which will wrap everything up, is resurgence. इसकी summary यहाँ लिखी है, but you will write now a heading: resurgence / revival of political theory. Resurgence. You already have pages back में, काफी space खाली दिया है. 2 pages blank इसीलिए है, right? Resurgence / revival of political theory. Resurgence, revival of political theory. लिखो, सबसे बड़ा रिवाइवल किसकी वजह से हुआ था? Rawls. But we will now write it properly. First point, right? Political theory revived strongly strongly from the 1970s, especially with the landmark work of John Rawls, especially with the landmark work of John Rawls, the landmark work of John Rawls. Bracket, the book name you should know, A Theory of Justice, 1971. Theory of Justice. Okay, 1971. Right? Rawls restored normative inquiry. Rawls restored normative inquiry. Rawls restored normative inquiry into justice, liberty, justice, क्या लिखा आपने? Justice, liberty, equality, full stop, then right? Right, Dante Germino in, I started by talking about his book. Now his book is going to be very relevant here. इनकी book का ही नाम है The Revival of Political Theory, right? देखो, Dante Germino's, his book name is The Revival of Political Theory. Very important figure. Dante Germino in the revival of political theory argued that with so many quality works, we are witnessing a renaissance. We are witnessing a renaissance in political speculation. We are witnessing a renaissance in political speculation. Okay. Whenever we say there is a revival of political theory, of course we start with Rawls, we can say. Second, who did I quote? अब इसके बाद revival, how do I know there's a revival? We will quote every possible new theories like emergence of feminism, right? Multiculturalism, right? People like Nozick, Hayek coming to the fore, communitarians, postmodernism. This is a revival that new theories are going to come forward. Yes? So, right? PT has revived in many forms. Political theory has revived in many forms. This you write in bullet points so that you can recall. लिखो Nozick, comma, so Nozick in the bracket, libertarianism, Nozick is libertarianism. Next, right? Pandel, Taylor, Walzer, all these are communitarians. Next, right? Habermas, Althusser as neo-Marxist. All of this is revival, new forms the discipline is taking. Then you can write feminism. After this, feminism. And you can write personal is political. And when I say personal is political, we are talking of radical feminism. Already older strands of feminism were existing, but revival is seen through the works of radical feminism. New strands of feminism coming in. So feminism you can write, then write liberals like Karl Popper, and Isaiah Berlin. Liberals like Karl Popper and Isaiah Berlin, comma. The next point, classical political theorists like Leo Strauss and Dante Germino. and Dante Germino. And last, right, post-colonial. This you will understand in the second class. When I do post-colonialism with you, post-colonial, right, post-colonial theorists who exposed Eurocentrism, post-colonial theorists who exposed Eurocentrism. एंड करेंगे इनकी लाइन के साथ इफ यू वांट. देयर आर टू वेज टू एंड दिस आंसर. वन, ओक शॉट. क्या बोला था हमने, राइट, बॉटमलेस बॉर्डरलेस सी. So one is oak shot. If not oak shot, end with, ये कोट याद कर लो आप, political theory is not an escape mechanism but a arduous calling. इससे एंड कर सकते हो. अच्छा, प्लीज मेक अ स्मॉल करेक्शन. इनकी स्पेलिंग जो आपके कोट में लिखी है, प्लेमेनार्ट्स, NETZ है. स्मॉल करेक्शन. प्लमेनार्ट्स. जस्ट अ स्मॉल करेक्शन प्लीज मेक. John Plame, PLAMENATZ. That is the correction. एक ई आएगा यहाँ पे, प्लामा नहीं, प्लमेनार्ट्स. ओके, शायद ये है नाम, एक बार देख लेंगे. प्लामेनार्ट्स, प्लामेनार्ट्स, ठीक है. ये रुक जाओ. ओके, ऑलमोस्ट एवरी देयर दिस. बहुत जगह अलग अलग स्पेलिंग है आई थिंक. इवन हियर आल्सो दे आर मेड. ठीक है, बट आई थिंक आवर स्पेलिंग में एक ई तो कहीं आता है. ठीक है, आई विल क्रॉस चेक एंड वेरीफाई. ठीक है. नाउ just to bring everything in one place, we started with political theory. We started with two quotes. कैसे start किया था हमने? Germino, Sabine, right? After that we went to what is political. अब जल्दी से बताओ what is political. All encompassing, right? So political में Aristotle, good life, Max Weber. ठीक है. Then Laswell, who gets what, when, how. Then we had seen Hannah Arendt. Take, and we have seen feminist, personalist, political. We saw the evolution from state to power to allocation to social transformation, right? And we also saw dharma can be political, right? Then we went to what is political theory. It can be explanatory, it can be conceptual, it can be normative. Then we saw nature and scope of political theory. अच्छे से पढ़ा था हमने. ठीक है. What were the four pillars that I told you? Study of political man, study of state, study of associations and institutions, study of past, present and future. Simple. पूरी चीज यहीं से रिकॉल हो जाएगी. Then we saw two big tables. First table was empirical, normative, empirical, behavioral, post-behavioral. Then another table was four traditional approaches: philosophical, historical, legal, institutional. अब आपको when you revise it, you need to know their scholars, their criticisms. Then we saw the core features of philosophical approach. अच्छे से पढ़ा था हमने. Then we went into decline of political theory. How many phases? Two phases. Traditionalists and behavioralists. वो करा हमने अच्छे से, right? Then we also understood what is the criticism of behavioralists, right? We also understood why there is post-behavioralism. The factual detail that you will have to remember is 8 features of behavioralism, 7 features of post behavioralism. What is the keyword with post behavioralism? Credo of relevance. याद रखेंगे इसको, ठीक है? That is one. And then end किससे किया हमने? Revival, resurgence of political theory. Now we are seeing, apart from roles, बहुत नई disciplines आ रही हैं सामने, which again tells you political theory is intellectual tradition that looks at man's existence from a critical perspective. And all of this we have summarized in less than 4 or 5 pages. ये सब कुछ आपके पास है सामने. Right? This is a very efficient way to cover political theory. Many people get confused. कैसे करना है, क्या नहीं करना है. आपके पास ये है. अब आपको करना क्या है? Revise this notes once. Have the PYQ register with you. जैसे बताया था मैंने orientation में. You will try to just brainstorm. So if you write any question, leave 2-3 pages. हो सकता है आपका पहला draft may not be that good. You may need to change it. This way you will be covering all the PYQs, the structuring of it in the next 3.5 months or 3 months. ये parallelly cover हो जाएगा. Many people start this after they clear the prelims और stress होता है उनको. Today after today's class कोई भी ऐसा question नहीं है जो आप सोच नहीं सकते हो. Of course थोड़ा और refine करेंगे. The more you read it, that can be done. But this is something that I will expect from you. ठीक है? That said, so this is where we will end the class for today. ठीक है? I said it will be at class till 4 PM. थोड़ा सा exceed हो गया, ठीक है? But I think we've had a very good coverage of the topic, so I think that should suffice, and your intellectual curiosity should suffice. कोशिश करेंगे जो पहला क्वेश्चन दिया था उसको लिखो, ठीक? If you want to challenge yourself, you should write this answer. Inherent meanings in the term political. पढ़ चुके हो, लिखो, ट्राई करो उसको बाद में, ठीक है? But the PYQs, and as and when you do the structuring of PYQs, put a tick mark. And whenever you are going to meet me, you will come to me with this copy also. और ये आपके handout साथ में रहेंगे. And after, let's say, after 8 classes or so, पूरा का पूरा 1A in very small pages will be there with you stapled. Revision बहुत fast होगा इससे आपका, ठीक है? So that is all I wanted to say and convey. People, anybody who's watching this online, अच्छा एक चीज और, I think there is some confusion with the batches. If you are doing the live batch, please ask the team to give you access of the 21st August wala batch. ठीक है? So please keep that in mind. If you get access of the previous batch, usme you will get the recorded classes. Fine? So this is the 21st August batch. Today we are having the first class of the static topic, that is political theory. ठीक है? And the people who are joining in the 21st August, इसके बाद अब आपकी एक class और है. That is theories of state. It will be a slightly longish class because I have to cover every theory of state. I think in the syllabus 6 terms are mentioned. But in those 4 to 5 hours लगेंगे. In the 5 hours that you will spend, the entire topic gets done. और सिर्फ ये दोनों चीजें हैं आपके पहले टेस्ट में. The test 1 of the people of 21st August batch, आपको सिर्फ ये 2 टॉपिक लिखने हैं. ठीक है? तो वो क्लास करके आप लिख लोगे. ठीक है? The test date लिख लो कहीं पे. I'll most probably today by night I'll be sharing the planner with you. Your test is on, I think, 5th of September if I'm not wrong. And please remember, इस बीच में हमारा interaction अभी फिर से होगा for the discussion of 2026 paper. I've already told you in advance. इसलिए बहुत ज़्यादा classes इस बीच में नहीं है. There is going to be one class on theories of state. Rest time is for your revision of current affairs in case somebody has missed it. And we are going to meet for at least 2 times. We will be meeting for discussion of paper. ठीक है? All right. The next class I'll be notifying because I think some of you are now going for Raksha Bandhan break and all. अब next class कब होगी क्या होगी that I will notify. ठीक है? Okay. All the best. I will update. अभी group में आज I will update. Okay. In fact, I'll share the planner. उससे clarity मिल जाएगी कैसे क्या होगा. ठीक है? अच्छा. And again, some of you keep on asking, will this clash with वज्र के साथ कोई clash नहीं है. आप GS speaker तो कोई भी आपकी क्लास मंडे थर्सडे को नहीं होगी. ठीक है? Second thing is, normally in a week you will either have 2 classes or max 3 classes. तो बहुत टाइम है रिवाइज करने के लिए, GS कवर करने के लिए, बैकलॉग्स के लिए. ठीक है? So that is there. Fine.